The denser the bones and skeletons are, the more disadvantageous it is to defend against escaping from Tiansuo. Under the full sprint, Dun Tiansuo, who sent out a white light, was like an invincible meteorite. He broke through the ranks of the white skeleton army and went straight ahead. He was also like a sharp sword, chopping the waves, invincible. At a certain moment, Duan Tiansuo, who knocked over countless meditation, suddenly deflected one direction and bumped into another. In front of the route he just dashed, countless white bones and skeletons were ready. Countless bone guns and knives were ready for a large area of open space in front of him, waiting for Yi Tian's Dun Tiansuo to come, and all sides made a terrible attack. Yi Tian's original eye is not vegetarian, and his mind always covers the surrounding area. Naturally, he knows the situation in front of him. The big seal magic weapon didn't come out anymore. He just urged Dun Tiansuo to pass through the countless white bones, smashed countless white shadows, rolled up all the debris, and rushed out of the white bones army. Then Dun Tiansuo swung his tail fiercely in the air, deflected a direction, and disappeared in the sky in a flash. A moment later, in the sight of many human friars, they are flying to this side. There are a large number of them. Yi Tian takes a look, and there are at least 20,000. These friars' shops are 20 to 30 li wide, and the ranks are more than 10 li long. They are scattered and panic-stricken. These are all the friars who were forced to enter the Tsongming world because of the countless white skeleton troops flying from the horizon. These people originally watched the scenes in the Tsongming world, but they finally suffered from the disaster of the pond fish and were innocent affected by the white skeleton army. Behind these friars, there are also countless white bones and skeletons, and some of them have been engulfed in the white tide. All Taoist friends, gather here to Yi. Dun Tiansuo, Yi Tianzhong full of energy to drink the voice far away out. At this time, some monks have seen Yi Tian Dun's figure and come here. With his shouting, more people speed up and come here. Yi Tian's mind moves. 200 puppets of Yuanying's martial spirit appear out of thin air and line up in the air. More than 10,000 ants turn into a black cloud and hover from the top of their heads. Invasion of Ghostland, fight with me. Then he yelled again, more than 200 Yuan puppets of the soul of the infant kingdom, together with more than 10,000 iron ants, swooped down to meet the rolling army of the underworld. At the same time, the magic weapon seal on Yi Tian's hand appeared again, and quickly turned into a dozen mu, smashing into the dense army of Ming Xiu. With these three kinds of thunder tactics, the forward part of the Ming Xiu army was in chaos, with a lot of casualties, but the white bones and skeletons still rolled in. Boom boom. Yi Tian's magic weapon Dajin shot one after another, smashed more than 10 times continuously. When he felt that his magic power was not continued, a drop of nature liquid was sent into his mouth. At this time, like a god, he was standing on Dun Tiansuo. The strong wind in the sky was blowing his black robe, and his long hair was dancing with the wind. When a dark shadow fell, Dun Tiansuo urged him, and the magic seal was summoned up, and fell down again 3 or 4 miles away. Boom boom. The sound of the earth shaking and the mountains shaking frequently sounded, and the scene was extremely tragic. Some of the fish who had not been stopped rushed through the gap between the magic weapon printing and the puppets of the martial spirit in Yuanying realm, and rushed to the assembled friars. Another war broke out between the friars and the white bone meditation. It was different from the time when they were chased and killed by Baigu Mingxiu before. With the appearance of Yi Tian, these people had the courage to fight to death as if they had the backbone. The most important thing is that Yi Tian's unified command stabilized their position and resisted the first wave of powerful attack of Mingxiu army. More than 90% of these monks are in Jindan realm, a few in Longmen realm and none in Guanhai realm. Most of the monks under the sea watching area who were originally surrounded by Tsong Ming died in the army of Ming cultivation. Fight while you go, join up with other members of the same team. The team should not be disordered and angry. They should help each other and reduce casualties as much as possible. Yi Tian again blasted out more than a dozen magic seal, making one of the spiritual accomplishments in front of him empty, and then he yelled. At this time, he was just like a general in the battlefield. At the same time, he could not disobey his orders. As soon as the words came to an end, the rear team changed into the front team and moved rapidly towards the battlefield of the 27th sect and the barbarian warriors.
Tian and 200 puppets of Yuanying fight behind him. More than 10,000 ants fly back and hover over Tian's head again.
The army of white bones and skeletons in front of them is one of the stagnant forces. Looking at the magic weapon seal on many of the people in front of them, the line stops.
Tian stands there like a god. They are quiet.
Tian gestures, put away the magic weapon seal, done Tiansuo U-turn, forward to fly done, catch up with the friars flying in front of the team.
Boom boom. Tian turns around and walks away. The white skeleton team moves again. It speeds up and rushes to this side.
The sound of footsteps is also very shocking.
Well. The second nasal sound of Tian suddenly snorted.
Dun Tiansuo suddenly turned back, held up the magic weapon seal in his palm, and glared at the white bones with dignity. The roaring footsteps stopped suddenly, and the skeleton team stopped again.
However, Tian didn't let them go. His gesture moved again, and the magic seal was smashed down.
The white bones and skeletons immediately scattered around.
However, the magic seal didn't smash down.
Instead, he quickly slipped in the air and moved a certain distance before falling down again. There are so many skeletons here that there is no room for them to dodge. Some skeletons soar into the air, but they are suddenly pressed by the extremely heavy magic weapon seal.
With a bang, they will hit the ground again. Boom. Boom. Boom.
Tian does not stop, continuous action, magic weapon seal is crazy hit more than 10 times.
Baigu Mingxiu suffered countless deaths and injuries. It was after Dabao Dayan was smashed one time that the army of Baigu skeletons finally collapsed and turned back to the rear like a tide.
Tian casually covers up and kills, smashes again 4 or 5 times, only then turns back.
In the rear, the friars had stopped flying away, suspended in the air, looking at the incredible scene ahead.
Eyes full of horror.
Majestic. Majestic.
When Tianxuan turned back to the moment, the shouts suddenly burst out, lasting.
Go!
Looking at those white bones and skeletons, they receded like the tide, and they didn't mean to come back again. As soon as Tian drove Dun Tiansuo to the friars, he said that he would open the way first and fly away to the other side of the battlefield. He was so fast that he left the friars behind in the blink of an eye. On the battlefield of the 27 clans and the barbarian warriors, they fought harder than Tian.
The watershed of the battlefield is extremely obvious.
On one side of the barbarians and the 27th sect, there are more than 10,000 fourth-order monsters at the front, while on the other side, there are countless white bone armies.
The monsters are directly engaged with the white skeleton army. At their feet are the bodies of many white skeletons and monsters. Among the demons and beasts, there are more than 100 puppets of Yuanying's martial spirits.
6 dead men are stealthy commanders, and they send out a surprise attack from time to time.
In each attack, a skeleton is cut down.
All of a sudden, the skeletons that had been cut down seem to have been blasted open with a sudden and inexplicable sound, and died in an unknown way. In the queue of white bones and skeletons, a raging fire was burning violently. Where the fire passed, it was a piece of broken bones, and then crushed by the white bones and skeletons rushing in. On the battlefield of close combat, a lot of meditation broke through the watershed, and the monks in the rear swarmed up and soon drowned those meditation. What surprised Tian the most was that those barbarian warriors stood alone and became the main force to fight against the white bones and skeletons. The weapons used by these barbarians are the same as those used by Najiak. They are big sticks made of unknown materials. When you wave it, you can't underestimate its power. In particular, the barbarians are tall and strong, and they have great strength. When they fight hard, they make people feel a kind of fierce wildness, even more shocking than those monsters.
Boom! 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 Dun Tiansuo rushes into the team of Bai Guomingxiu with a flash of white light.
Bai Guomingxiu in the front of the sky dodges one after another, and Tian's big seal magic weapon hits the skeleton on the ground again and again. The earth is shaking, and the sound of roaring comes one after another. In an instant, the white bones and skeletons here are already dead and injured. Countless white bones and skeletons turn into broken bones and become a part of the white earth. Finally, under the fierce bombardment of Tian, the white skeleton army was in chaos, and the next moment had retreated like a tide.
Pursue and kill. Tian yelled and took the lead in chasing the white bone army. The defeat of the Begaming army is like the ebb of the tide. The alliance of the human friars and the barbarian warriors is like the flood of the tide. The back waves chase the front waves and cover up the past. Countless Begaming skeletons die on the road of defeat. After chasing for 200 or 300 li, Tian Kai stopped the formation. At this time, another group of friars came from another direction. Stop! High in the sky, Tian yelled and his right hand rose. Many friars who pursued Baigumingxiu stopped their bodies one after another, and the fierce beasts who were not afraid of death also turned around, but they were still roaring in their mouths. Recuperate on the spot, heal the injury, pay attention to the alert. Yi Tianfen told him to drive Dun Tiansuo away from the team again, to dozens of miles away. According to historical experience, it took more than a month for Tsangming Kingdom to really open from the eruption of Tsangming Decree. Now it's just beginning, and it's going to take a long time in the Tsangming world. The most important thing now is not to kill a lot of white bones, but to keep these monks in a state of full protection. In the ghost world, there is no end to the cultivation of white bones, and there is no end to killing them. Even if we kill the existing cultivation of Tsangming Kingdom, I'm afraid there will be more and more people coming in. Up to now, Tian doesn't know what the purpose of those meditation is. Is it to save bones? At this time, outside the boundary of Tsangming, the battle of Yupujing monks came to an end again. The strong of several camps separated and occupied a corner of the sky to guard against each other. But outside the boundary of Tsangming, there are more white bones, which gather in the sky. Judging from the speed of flying and escaping of the former white bone meditation, there are many levels of Hades, and Hades. It is equivalent to the realm of deification, the realm of Yuanying and the realm of Jindan of the friars of the human race, especially the underworld. On one side of the Terran camp, the 8 sects have obviously stood on the side of the ghost world, and the rest of them are very few. The monks who had been watching the battle in Tsangming had already died, escaped, and some of them entered Tsangming. What will happen next, Tian doesn't know and can't predict at all. He also needs to add more cards to cope with the crisis coming at any time. When he arrived dozens of miles away, Tianwei waited for a moment, until his disciples and the dead also arrived here, and then he sent out a message. After counting the breath, a transparent white round shield surrounded itself. It was the dead men who started the lock sky array field. With the protection of the lock array field, Tian is a little relieved. He takes out a magic weapon cave. With a gesture and a magic power, he opens the forbidden shield of the cave. Then the body flashed into the cave, then hit a mana again and opened the forbidden shield. Master, I know you're okay. How did you escape the pursuit of the great friars in Yupu realm in the end? In the cave, Xian Run, the old servant of Tian, opened his eyes very much during his cultivation. He got up with a happy look and asked respectfully. Those friars in Yupu realm can't help me at all. If you don't elaborate on the process, it's urgent to come in now. Tian sits down with his knees crossed and says that he doesn't want to say more about his embarrassing escape into Tsangming world. Isn't it good to keep a sense of mystery? This is the first time that he has entered Xian Run's cave since he entered Tsangming Kingdom. There is a magic power in Tsangming Kingdom. All monks above Yuanying Kingdom will be killed if they enter it. Tian thought that no matter how magical the power is, it must be some kind of physical or spiritual attack. With the powerful lock sky array field, and the second layer insurance of magic cave. In addition, Xianrun practiced the art of spirit subduing, and his usual state of cultivation just stays at the level of golden elixir. Tian doesn't know whether he can be attacked by mysterious forces in this case. That's why I took a chance. Unexpectedly, he entered the magic cave safely and saw Xianrun. Now we are in the Tsangming world, but the Tsangming world has not been officially opened. It is just the stage of erupting Tsangming orders. I don't know what the specific reason is. The underworld's underworld practitioners invade on a large scale. There are many underworld practitioners in the Tsangming world, so there is one thing you need to cooperate with. Tian said the matter briefly, and then looked at Xianrun. If you have anything to do, please don't be so polite. Shenron smiles awkwardly and says, take out the Xianyang stone from Shumi commandment. Yi Tian immediately nodded and said, it's the matter. I'll do it according to you.
Shenron said with a relaxed look, and then made a gesture.
The huge dark golden Xianyang stone appeared in the cave.
In Xianyang, Yi Tian suddenly felt a heavy load on his body, as if he had pressed an unknown amount of heavy load, and his action immediately became extremely slow. He slowly took out the fierce flying sword and struck Xianyang stone hard. However, his consciousness was to strike hard, but it seemed that the action was that the fierce flying sword was slowly approaching Xianyang stone and finally came to Xianyang stone. Originally, Yi Tian wanted to cut off a Xianyang stone, but it was obvious that depending on his current cultivation, even if he was near the Xianyang stone, he would have some difficulties, let alone cutting off the Xianyang stone.
I'll try.
Seeing this scene, Shenron gestured, took out his Banxianbing flying sword, and slashed at Xianyang stone.
Fortunately, it's better than Yi Tian. It's not as slow as Yi Tian. However, when the Banxianbing's flying sword cuts Xianyang stone, it can't cut down a bit. Yi Tian frowned. It's really strange. Although Shenron's Banxianbing flying sword is not as good as his own fierce flying sword, he didn't leave any trace.
I'm afraid it's useless to use his own fierce flying sword. A little ponder, he did not use the fierce sword to try, but called out the original spirit fire after mixing 4 kinds of flames. Flame into a mini phoenix, in the era volume, rushed to Xianyang stone.
The light flame is just like thunder.
It is not affected by the gravity field of Xianyang stone. It emits high temperature and begins to refine some outstanding Xianyang stone. At the beginning, under such a scorching high temperature, Zuanyangshi didn't react, but with the passage of little by little, finally the dark gold Zuanyangshi began to melt slowly. Melt to make thick golden liquid, slowly flow down from Xianyang stone. Yi Tian moves slowly, takes out the Di'in magic weapon from the Shumi ring, enlarges the Di'in magic weapon in the space of the magic weapon cave, and then uses his magic power to slowly lead the melted black liquid to the Di'in magic weapon. Then the idea moves, the magic weapon rises from the ground, slowly flies to the flame, and refines together. Yi Tian has repeatedly refined the fierce sword, and he has also melted this seal magic weapon into 1 yuan heavy water.
He is very familiar with refining weapons.
However, the re-refining this time is quite different from that before, that is, the refining is carried out in the strong gravity field of Zuanyangshi, which is more difficult than ever. If Yi Tian had entered the peak period of Longmen realm, he would not have been able to carry out in such a gravity field. But now, although it is relatively difficult, refining is slowly going on. It's not that Yi Tian didn't want to cut off part of Xianyang stone with flame, and then let Shenron put away the whole body of Xianyang stone and refine small pieces of Xianyang stone. However, if we do this, we can only turn the flame into a line of fire and burn and melt a little bit, and the time will certainly increase a lot.
Now what Yi Tian lacks is time.
In this case, although refining is difficult, the overall speed is not slow, but it costs too much mana. Little by little, gradually, Yi Tian, who constantly refined the magic weapon of Di'in, entered a mysterious state. At the beginning, the heavy feeling of being bound was gradually alleviated, and his movements became more fluent. It seemed that he had become a part of Xianyang stone, and the fine dark golden lines scattered from Xianyang stone were gradually reducing his fetters. As his refining continued, Yi Tian's movements became more and more relaxed, and the influence of the gravity field became weaker and weaker. At the beginning, the feeling of fatigue and difficulty gradually disappeared. Through Yuan Tian Eye, he found that the dark golden lines emitted by Xianyang stone were not binding himself, but penetrating his body and wandering in his body. That kind of wandering with the wind like a willow, his body should have any obstruction to this strange dark golden line. If you don't feel that your body is normal, I'm afraid Yi Tian will immediately stay away from this gravity field. He separated part of his mind, while melting the Xianyang stone into the big seal magic weapon, and continued to observe the dark golden lines. As the dark golden lines continue to swim in the body, Yi Tian feels that there seems to be a magical power in the body, which is melting from the dark golden lines into the muscles, bones, viscera, and even blood. My mana and realm have not been improved at all, but my strength and physical strength are slowly becoming more terrifying.
Tian has now achieved immortal body.
Even with his experience as a great monk in Yupu realm, he doesn't know what more terrifying realm is on immortal body. But now he clearly feels that his body is slowly undergoing earth-shaking changes, not quantitative changes, but pure qualitative changes. This kind of situation, let Leaf Day in the heart give birth to a burst of ecstasy, but the ecstasy of his in the heart is to feel extremely confused.
Why does this happen?
He had been in contact with Xianyang Stone many times before, and since Xianyang Stone absorbed the power of Xianyang Stone, Tian had been in contact with it, but it never happened. If there is any difference between this contact and the previous contact, it is this time that he used his own original spirit fire to refine Xianyang Stone.
Is it related to one's own original fire? Or is it related to the idea of Sui Huang view?
For him, this matter is like a profound mystery, the root cause cannot be guessed. With this thought, Tian took out a Xianyang Stone from Xumi ring again.
Now his Xianyang Stone has been completely absorbed by Xianyang Stone.
Xianyang Stone has changed from black as ink to dark gold, while Xianyang Stone has changed from black as ink to pure white as jade.
What is the relationship between Xianyang Stone and Xianyang Stone? You don't know.
As Tian refines the seal magic weapon, he observes the Xianyang Stone. Under the light of Yuantian's eye, Tian is surprised to find that the dark golden fine lines of Xianyang Stone flash away when they touch the crystal clear Xianyang Stone. This kind of feeling is if the two are the same poles of magnets, when they are going to meet, they naturally conflict with each other and separate.
Is it an accident?
Tian tried again several times, no matter what way he used, this situation happened.
Until finally, Tian finally determined that Xianyang Stone was immune to the dark golden lines of Xianyang Stone.
So, Tian ponders for a moment, and a trace of joy appears on his face. Suddenly, he has an idea of how to use Xianyang Stone. However, whether it can work or not still needs to be tried before he knows.
Just do what you say. Xianyang Stone doesn't melt very fast. Tian's mind can separate his mind and refine the seal magic weapon.
At this time, he separated another mind and controlled a small piece of pure white jade Xianyang Stone to refine on the original spirit fire. Soon, Xianyang Stone began to transform from solid to liquid, and Tian began to precisely control the mana to refine the molten Xianyang Stone. From time to time, some materials flew out of Xumi ring and joined the molten Xianyang Stone, continuing to refine on the original spirit fire. Half an hour later, Tian reaches for a move, and a soft white jumpsuit flies to Tian.
This one-piece dress has a peculiar shape.
If it is filled with gas, it is a bit similar to some entertainment products of later generations.
There is a hat on the dress, but the hat is closed.
There are socks on the pants, and the socks are closed. There are no buttons, no zippers, all parts are completely closed, clothes and pants are connected together, and gloves are on the sleeves, so people can't see how this dress can be put on people.
Xian Run.
Looking at the clothes in his hand, Tian called softly.
Here comes the old slave.
Xian Run seems to pace and come to Tian from a certain room.
Try it on. Tian's white clothes are handed over to Xian Run.
The old slave thanks his master for his gift. In his busy schedule, the master still wants to make new clothes for him. The old slave is grateful and will keep the clothes alive.
He will always remember his master's grace.
Holding the white dress, Xian Run said excitedly. When Tian heard the speech, the corner of his mouth twitched a few times. Xian Run, I just want you to have a try, not for you.
Now you are a tool man and a worker. I want clothes.
I'll refine them for you later.
Air. Xian Run's expression was smothering, and he didn't say any more.
The idea was imprinted on his clothes, and then the white clothes flashed into his body.
Haha, this dress looks like you haven't worn it. I don't know what the master can use to refine it.
Xian Run quickly stretched out his hand, raised his arm, turned around on the ground, looked at his body, and said with a puzzled face. All of a sudden, his figure stopped, the color of his face changed, and he suddenly looked at himself. Then he looked at Tian in amazement. Master, the gravity field has disappeared, is it this dress? When he thought of this, and the white dress broke away from him. Xian Run felt the shackles of the gravity field again, which was not as casual as before. Before that feeling, as if Xianyang stone does not exist in general, Xianying stone just does not exist in general.
Action is so relaxed and natural, no astringency.
Yes, this dress can avoid the gravity field, not affected by any gravity field.
Before, this dress was just an idea of mine, but now it has become a reality, and there is a new one in the world.
Yi Tian repressed the excitement in his heart and said slowly, Shen Run, it's dangerous outside now.
It's time to need this kind of treasure clothes. If you like it, keep on wearing it for a while, and then do something with me. The master has orders. I dare not disobey them. Whatever I do, the master orders me.
Shen Run immediately made a statement, then put on the white clothes again. Yi Tian tidies up the continuous action, a pile of materials appear in front of Shen Run, smile at him and say, follow me to refine this kind of treasure clothes. Follow my action, what steps, what materials, what heat, how to soften clothes, all follow my appearance.
Say words, Yi Tian tidies up a move, a pure white Xianying stone is rolled up by him with magic power, flies to the original spirit fire.
Shen Run draws a gourd in the same way and rolls up a Xianying stone. However, the Xianying stone just flew up, but Shen Run suddenly thought of something and looked at Yi Tian with a strange look in his eyes.
He looked at Yi Tian with a straight face. Yi Tian thought that his face was dirty. He wiped his face and asked strangely, what's the matter?
Shen Run's expression recovered a little at this time. Master, you just said, let me try that treasure garment, that is to say, it's the first treasure garment refined, but you don't wear it, how can you not be limited by the gravity field?
So it is? I thought there was something wrong with it. Because of my special constitution, I would not be affected by the gravity field.
Yi Tian, these words have no problem, he also can so explain, concrete reason, he also muddle-headed.
Understand, the master is very human and comparable.
Shen Run suddenly nodded, and then continued to control the Xianying stone and put it on the original spirit fire. For nearly an hour, Shen Run followed Yi Tian to refine the first treasure garment.
Although it was far less exquisite than Yi Tian's, it was functional enough after a try. In fact, as long as the materials are used correctly, the rest are secondary.
Xianying stone can avoid the limitation of gravity field.
As long as there is Xianying stone, it is enough.
Other materials are only auxiliary materials for making Bowie. Adding those materials will be more humanized, comfortable and durable, and will not affect the wearer's freedom of movement. This dress, Shen Run refining is not very skilled, use more time.
But then, everything is much smoother.
With the first experience, Yi Tian no longer takes Shen Run with him and lets himself refine at his own pace. On the other hand, he had to make his own clothes.
He was busy enough.
At present, only Yi Tian himself and Shen Run can refine Bowie here.
Other friars can't bear the long time baking of Yi Tian Benyuan's spirit fire.
This terrible high temperature, even for a little longer, makes Shen Run frown. If Yi Tian is not the master of the spirit fire, he must suddenly come into contact with this kind of fire after refining in Dantian for a long time, which is also unbearable.
No way, it's just the two of them refining. In the magic cave, time passed bit by bit.
I don't know how many times later, Yi Tian's action suddenly stopped, and then said to Shen Run, hurry up, speed up the refining of the treasure clothes. With that, his action also became fast. The finished treasure garment on Linghua continued to refine, but the action of refining Xianyang stone stopped. The focus of Linghua is the derivation of talisman pattern, which needs to be re-portrayed in some places.
Soon, the refining of Bowie was completed, and Yi Tian began to concentrate on refining Dayan magic weapon.
More than 10 minutes later, Yi Tian finally wiped the sweat on his forehead and looked at the magic seal that had been refined. The original black magic seal, after being refined with Xianyang stone, has turned into a dark gold color with complex rune patterns and faint streamer. Yi Tian's magic power hits the magic seal, and the dark golden seal quickly turns into a fist and flies to Yi Tian's hand.
He brings it into Shumi commandment.
The next moment, the heat wave of the original spirit fire comes, and Yi Tian is also included in the elixir field. After a look at the treasure clothes piled up on the ground, Yi Tian put them away. After constant refining, he and Shen Run made 72 pieces of treasure clothes.
Although the quantity is not much, it is the maximum.
Master, I can continue to refine the fire attribute Taoist art. The fire may not be advanced enough, but if I refine it for a long time, I can also refine the Xianyin stone. Yi Tian's eyes stay on the treasure clothes for a while. Xianrun can see that Yi Tian is not satisfied with the quantity of these clothes, and says in a hurry. But Yi Tian waved his hand and said, "No, it's too time-consuming and inefficient. A few more clothes can't solve the big problem. Your task is to step up your cultivation and improve your strength as much as possible." Then Yi Tian threw 2 jade bottles to him. Xianrun happily took it. He naturally guessed that what was in it was pills. All the pills that Yi Tian gave him were very effective. During this period of cultivation, his strength rose sharply, and there was a sign that he had broken through to the peak of the spirit state. The Xianyang stone is only 1/3 of the size of the magic seal. Because of the time, it can only be refined so much. The rest can only wait for the chance to refine later and integrate into the big seal magic weapon. After giving Xianrun pills, Yi Tian looks at the remaining Xianyang stone. "Put it away, master." Sensing Yi Tian's eyes, Xianrun comes over very cleverly and wants to bring Xianyang stone back to Xumi. "Wait a minute." Yi Tianyi waved his hand to stop him. Then he came to Xianyang stone and patted the hot stone body with his hand. He held the bottom of Xianyang stone with one hand and the body with the other. With the help of his arms, the Xianyang stone rose from the ground. At the next moment, Yi Tian had been included in his Xumi commandment. "Master, this. Your strength." In this scene, Xianrun is stunned. He knows the weight of Xianyang stone very well. Even in his state, it is very difficult to access Xianyang stone. Although the weight of Xianyang stone is 1/3 less, it is definitely not something that a monk in Longmen can shake. Let alone the Longmen realm, even the Jindan realm is absolutely impossible. I'm afraid that even the monks of Yuanyingjing can do this. You know, there is a big difference between magic weapons and materials. The magic weapons are engraved with runes. Monks can use the power of runes to drive extremely heavy magic weapons, such as Yi Tian's use of Di'in magic weapon. But the material is different, and Xianyang stone is this kind of material without rune. If you want to move it, you have to rely on your own strength. If he heard about it from other people, he would never believe it. However, all this happened in front of his eyes. He saw it with his own eyes, but he couldn't help believing it. Although he saw that Yi Tian didn't use much mana, which was basically physical strength, the more he did, the more surprised Xianrun was. Hearing Xianrun's inquiry, Yi Tian waved his hand. "It's just a little brute force. It's not worth mentioning." "Xianrun, take off your clothes, quickly undress." "Master." "Old slave." Xianrun grabbed his collar and stepped back, with an embarrassed look on his face. Yi Tian was stunned and then lost his smile. "Hi. Where do you think you are? Take off your precious clothes. You can't use them in the cave." "Ah. The treasure clothes," the old slave thought. Xianrun said, and his mind moved. The clothes which he wore to help refine the treasure clothes appeared in a flash. Yi Tianyi took them away, then opened the defense shield of the magic cave, and walked out. However, the ecstasy in his heart can't be described by words. The harvest of entering the magic cave this time is beyond his imagination. If nothing else, Yi Tian could not believe that the Xianyang stone could refine itself just because of the power of the body. What kind of existence was it that the white lines turned into dark gold? What's more, he can clearly feel that his physical strength has improved a lot, and the specific strength can't be estimated for a while without some experiments. But there must be no time now. A magic power hits the magic cave. The magic cave shrinks quickly and is summoned by Yi Tian. Then it disappears. Yi Tian took a few steps forward, and the transparent shield that was always on the outside suddenly disappeared. 36 dead men put up the flag of Skylock Array. Yi Tian takes a look at the many dead men and disciples who are waiting here all the time. He moves his hand again and releases a magic weapon cave. He sends a message to the 73 dead men and greets them into the cave. After more than 10 breaths, Yi Tian came out from the inside again. Behind him, 73 invisible dead men followed closely. If others could see their expressions, they would surely find that it was a kind of excitement with light in their eyes. The next moment, Tian put away the magic weapon cave, as if these disciples and the dead did not exist, and sent out the white light of Dun Tiansua to the sky of the monks.
The leader is coming, great! The appearance of Tian immediately triggered the cheers of the flash tsunami.
Even for a moment, they were still full of anxiety and panic, and looked at the location of Tian. At this moment, they all showed a determined smile. Some people used to call Tian as the leader of the alliance, but at this moment, Liange, the leader of the alliance, spoke out naturally from many elixirs. Even if the person they call the leader of the alliance is just a monk in the golden elixir realm, the name is full of peace of mind and conviction.
Everyone, get ready to fight. Dun Tiansua, Tian waved to the crowd, immediately issued the order.
As early as when he was refining Bowie in the magic cave, Tian had been paying attention to the situation in Songming Kingdom. At the beginning, there was no situation worthy of his attention. The two groups of white bones and skeletons gathered together to rest.
After that, there was no abnormal situation. There are no new skeletons in the ghost world outside Songming Kingdom.
However, not long ago, a large number of friars from the 8 sects swarmed into the Songming Kingdom, with a total of 6,000 or 7,000. Together with the monks of more than 3,008 sects, it seems to be very powerful. After the disciples of Batazonman came in, those Mingxiu began to move. They divided their forces with the disciples of Batazonman and began to encircle here.
The boundary of Songming is only thousands of li.
For ordinary people, such an area is very large, but for friars and skeletons who have their own magic power and are far faster than ordinary people, it's not too small.
In such a small area, it is impossible to detour with the enemy or use any strategy.
In the face of a strong enemy, we must face close combat. There is no shortcut but hard work. All friars know this. At Tian's command, the combined forces of the human and barbarian groups, whose total number has reached 40,000, began to cheer up. Although the number of the Begaming army seems to be more than 300,000, plus the monks of the 8 sects, the strength of the other side is 10 times that of me, far more than here. But in the face of life and death, we can only rely on our own strength, not on the kindness of the enemy. In every war before, there were monks falling, but compared with the death and injury of white bones, the number of these casualties was almost negligible.
Because Tian, a Longmen monk who creates miracles. He is a legendary figure who suppresses countless Baigu Mingxiu with his own strength.
With him, these friars have a belief that in this war, which seems to have a huge disparity in power and is bound to lose, maybe miracles will happen.
This is the trust in the commander. These are used to deal with the friars of the 8 sections. The effect is limited when they are used on the cultivation of Baigu Ming.
Tian on Dun Tiansua suddenly made a gesture, and a team of cylindrical magic weapons appeared on the ground. It seemed that there were at least 2,000 of them. These are the magic weapons that can emit poison and needles that were seized from friars of Qin Yun's sect in the previous war. The people of Qin Yun's sect are cruel enough. Everyone carries 4 or 5 of them. Although many Shumi commandments are destroyed by the fire of Tian's original spirit, there are so many of them. Tian arranged a few small sect monks to control these magic weapons. This kind of thing can only show its shocking power if it is launched centrally.
Brother Tian, no, these skeletons seem to be ready this time.
When Tian Zhang, who had assigned the magic weapon, was concentrating on observing the enemy's movements, Nejiak suddenly flew to Dun Tiansua, who was in front of Tian, and said in a gruff voice, "It seems that those ghosts have made a lot of preparations." Tian nodded slightly and said, "It's normal that they haven't launched an attack for such a long time. They must have made full preparations, otherwise they would not have launched an action. Although they are only white bones and skeletons, they are intelligent and not stupid."
Nejiak said, Tian also found some problems. This time the attack of Baigu Mingxiu is really different from before.
In front of the white skeleton army, there are a few tall white skeletons, which account for a small proportion of the white skeleton army, only about 6,000 or 7,000. But Tian can clearly feel that the speed of these skeletons is much faster than other skeletons, and they must be stronger. This kind of skeleton has never appeared in the previous battles with Baigu Mingxiu. It seems that it should be a new force from the ghost world. Moreover, Tian also saw that at least half of the white bones and skeletons held a bone shield. The bone shields in each Mingxiu's hand were different in shape and size. It seemed that the bones used to refine the bone shield were not unified. In addition, there are many white shelves in the fast-moving white skeleton army, which looks like a good thing. There are many big tables made of bones. The legs are very long and there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of them under them. The rest of the meditation are under the shelf, completely covered by the shelf. In this case, if it rains, it can definitely be used as an umbrella.
Is it to deal with your own magic weapon, Tian?
The Leaf Day Heart laughs, so guess. As for the Batazongman, Tian didn't see any difference at the moment, but he knew very well that since there were so many disciples sent by the Batazongman under such circumstances, it would be impossible to say that there was no preparation. But as for what means they will have, it is impossible to guess only by guessing when they are fighting each other to death. When Tian looked at the enemy army here, the ancestors of the 27 small clans outside the boundary of Tsangming, as well as the strong barbarians such as Man Wang, had a dignified look. At this time, these people have gathered together, and the mind covers the Tsangming world. Man Wang, this time, those guys in the ghost world are fierce and well prepared. They have taken precautions against Yi Xiuyo's means, and there are some more powerful ones. I'm afraid our coalition forces can't resist the attack of the underworld and the 8 sects. The old ancestor of the Duan family said anxiously.
Man Wan's expression was heavy.
He stood there silent, staring at the direction of Tsangming Kingdom. His worried look was also very obvious. It's a pity that the monks in Tsangming Kingdom could not get in, otherwise he would have killed them. On this side, there are new strong men coming from the ghost world. In addition, the big friars of Yupujing in the 8 sects have no advantage. Even if they fight with each other, they will be in a disadvantage. But I don't know why, it seems that the great friars on the other side of the ghost world don't want to compete with the barbarians and the great friars of Yupujing in the 27 small sect. Instead, they pay more attention to Tsangming.
Looking at the Man King's ugly face and not talking, the ancestor of the Duan family tentatively asked, Man King, when will the barbarian reinforcements arrive?
The king has sent people back to gather reinforcements. The wild area is too wide, and the people are scattered everywhere. They are all based on tribes. It must take a lot of time to gather enough barbarian warriors. In this case, even if there are 10,000 or 20,000 people, nothing can be solved at all.
Man Wang said gruffly. Is there no one in your 27 sects to send? Do you just watch the disciples inside being killed?
After that, Man Wang suddenly asked with a stare. Duan's ancestors and others looked at each other, and there was some helplessness in their eyes.
Duan's ancestors replied, We all have some disciples of Jindan realm, but the number is not very large, and the small realm is not too high.
As Man Wang said, in this case, sending another 10,000 or 20,000 people will not help.
Why let them go in and die?
I think that if the barbarian reinforcements can arrive as soon as possible, the reinforcements on both sides can be used together. I don't want to let the reinforcements on the king's side go all out on their own.
I don't think it's too late. I know the barbarians best.
I just hope they can hold on until the reinforcements come.
Man Wang said helplessly. Alas, if only Tian were more powerful, he would not be so passive.
At this time, the cold ancestor of Taijin Villa suddenly sighed.
It's no use having more, don't you see?
The Ghost Kingdom has made full preparations, and the half-step god has sent thousands of people. Even the altar of the ancestor of the underworld has been removed by them to resist Yi Tian's big seal magic weapon.
Even if there are more Yi Tian, they can't do anything about it.
Man Wang shook his head, even his voice was much smaller. Unless there is a miracle, we can only watch it. After hearing the words, everyone knew that what King Man said was true. They were all silent for a while. In the battle of such a large scale and number of legions, personal strength could not decide the outcome of the battle. For a moment, the atmosphere here was more silent.
It's time.
Just when Man Wang and others were talking with each other, Yi Tian suddenly said that he was driving Dun Tiansuo forward to meet Ningxiu 100 miles away.
Seeing that Yi Tian's Dun Tiansua appeared, the marching speed of the Ming Shou army slowed down, and countless bone spears and swords aimed at the sky from the gap of the tall skeleton, ready to attack at any time. But Yi Tian doesn't care, and the speed of Dun Tiansua doesn't decrease at all. Whoosh! 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 Countless white lights rose from the sky and blocked the sky. All of them were bone swords and spears. The storm shot at Dun Tiansua in the sky. Dun Tiansua drifted in the air, and the white light flashed. In a twinkling of an eye, he was far away. This kind of attack does not pose any threat to him. At the next moment, Yi Tian's Dun Tiansua is back again. Flying back to the bones and spears of the underworld army, the dark gold magic weapon seal that he had just refined had appeared on his palm. The next moment, the seal soared from his hands, and suddenly turned into the size of 30 to 40 mu, emitting a breathtaking golden light, with a breath of terror, and suddenly fell on the tall white bones in front of him. After the re-refining, the magic weapon seal is more than twice as big as before. I don't know how much bigger the weight is than before, and the falling speed is faster than before. Under a huge shadow, the tall white bones below made a strange cry and wanted to escape from the cover of the magic weapon seal. However, what they did not expect was that at this time, they seemed to have a heavy burden on them. The white bone body became extremely heavy, and the original extremely fast speed could not be exerted at all. When the tall white bones and skeletons were struggling to move, the huge magic weapon seal had fallen. Boom! Like a big mountain, the dark golden magic seal cast a large shadow and fell heavily. The gravity field of the seal makes it impossible for the tall white bones and skeletons covered by its cage to escape. The seal hits them like tofu, and the ground full of white bones is shaking violently. I don't know how many kilos of the magic weapon seal are there. It directly smashes a huge pit in the ground, as if the seal is inlaid on the ground. The thick seal body is even with the ground. No matter from the top or from the front, the original seal can't be seen. It's just like the endless land of bones, with a square dark gold, which is one-sided and no longer a three-dimensional magic weapon. Hiss! How powerful! Yi Tian is the first to use the newly refined magic weapon Dian. He is scared by the terrible power of this Dian. Not to mention the terrible weight of Dian, but the gravity field emitted by Dian itself is far beyond his expectation. Originally, the Shenyang stone that he integrated into the seal magic weapon was only 1/3 of the size of the whole Shenyang stone. According to his estimation, the field emitted by the Shenyang stone should be 1/3 of the strength of the gravity field of the whole Shenyang stone. However, what he did not expect was that from the difficulty of those tall white bones to escape, it is no less than the gravity field produced by the whole Shenyang stone. Is it because the rune engraved on the melting seal has a bonus to the gravity field? The doubt in Yi Tian's heart flashed by, but now there are endless bones and skeletons ahead. He can't find out the reason for this problem. Anyway, the more powerful the magic seal is, the better. All the reasons can only be found slowly when we are free in the future, not now. He thought. A magic power across the air hit on the magic seal, deep in the ground of the dark gold magic seal. Boom, from the smashed out of the pit, but again reduced to fly into the air, the dark gold light flashed back to Yi Tian's hands. The next moment, this terrible magic weapon seal once again turned into a dark gold Fangzheng mountain and smashed down. There was no accident. Another deafening sound came from the ground. Those bones were shocked by the power of the seal. When they wanted to escape, they fell into the previous state of terror. The strong gravity field bound their bodies. Even moving a certain distance was extremely difficult, let alone escaping from the 40 or 50 mu area covered by the seal. Another pit was smashed out by the magic seal. Dian landed twice, 2 huge pits. When the magic weapon Dian was taken back by Yi Tian again, looking down from the air, the 2 deep fears suddenly appeared not far away. They were gloomy on the boundless land of bones. They looked terrible, like the 2 eyes of the land of bones, which made people shiver. Holding the big seal, which is the size of a fist, Yi Tian looks down on Dun Tiansua like a god. At this time, on the ground, there was a violent chaos and commotion in the army of white bones and skeletons. Those tall white bones and skeletons began to retreat in panic. The retreating white bones and skeletons collided with the endless white bones and skeletons coming from the rear,
forming a fierce confrontation, just like the tide collided with each other, and became extremely chaotic. Tian's eyes flashed fiercely and fell down for the third time. From the first time to drive the magic seal, he was not only shocked by the terrible power of the new magic seal, but also surprised to find that the royal envoy's magic power was much greater than that of the previous one. The old magic weapon Tian can be used at least 30 or 40 times by his power. But now, according to the estimation of the mana consumed by one drive, at most, he can only make 10 or so royal envoys. After 10 times, although the mana will not be completely exhausted, it will be very difficult to sacrifice this treasure again. Originally, Tian felt a pity in his heart. If more Xianyang stones were refined into the Tian magic weapon, wouldn't it be more powerful? Up to now, he secretly congratulated himself that he had not refined more. Even with the number of Xianyang stones, the more powerful the magic weapon was, it was not a good thing for him. No matter how powerful he is, he can't drive, or even drive less and less times, which is definitely not a good thing. The right is the best. It is just like the treasure he has now, that is to say, Hui Bao and Tian Luonet. These two are immortal tools. Are they of high grade? However, Tian's current cultivation state can't be used at all. What can he do? Tian doesn't want to turn his seal magic weapon into a powerful treasure that he can't use. It's just right. At least in front of him, it's just right to deal with Baigu Mingxiu. It is because Tian sensed the power consumed to drive this object that he did not continue to smash those tall white skeletons when he offered the seal magic weapon for the third time. This time, the dark gold magic weapon seal hit the ancestral altar, which had long legs, like a table, and was lifted up by the white bones. He just wanted to frighten Baigu Mingxiu with the overwhelming power of the magic seal. Boom! The third time the magic seal was smashed, the dense Ming ancestral altar suddenly sent out a piece of white light. Under the white light, it seemed that each small altar existed independently and condensed into a whole, protecting the white bones and skeletons below. The dark gold magic weapon seal casts a thick shadow and collides with the white light in a flash. Boom! A piece of golden light comes out from the magic seal. The dazzling light grabs people's eyes. The next moment, the golden light collides with the white light. The sound was more violent than any of the previous magic weapon seal. It was like an earthquake. The bones on the ground broke out and shot upward under the violent shock. It was like the earth itself was a merciless killer. It sent out countless bones, which hit the ground and the meditation in the air. And the white light shrouded by the Ming ancestral altar, is also a bang, was dozens of acres of magic weapon seal smashed down in a flash, pressed into the ground. Originally, the killing power of the magic weapon Tian was only his own area of tens of mu. Beyond the coverage of Tian, the killing power of Baigu Mingxiu was only limited to the scope of Tian. This time, however, it was quite different. The nearby single Ming people's sacrificial platform was almost 10 li in diameter, and there were countless white bones under it. When the Ming people's sacrificial platform was smashed down, the white bones and skeletons under it had no chance to escape. They were all suppressed by the Ming people's sacrificial platform and smashed underground. Under the dark golden light, there was a larger white light, which covered the ground of the bones, almost level with the ground. Before, the dense bones of Mingxiu were still under the altar, but now, there is no more. The white bones and skeletons under the ancestral altar are empty. The white light on the altar is gradually dim, revealing the original shape of a single altar. Mountain and River Seal. It's really Mountain and River Seal. Outside Sangming, a tall white skeleton with pure white flame in its eye socket suddenly said in a hoarse voice. This is the seal of mountains and rivers in the legend. It is said that at the time of the apocalypse, there is a curse on the netherworld. Once the seal of mountains and rivers comes out, the netherworld will return to darkness, and the end of the netherworld is coming. No, at all costs, kill that monk, take down the seal of mountains and rivers, save the underworld and revive the underworld ancestors. No one knows whether the tall white skeleton is talking to other skeletons or muttering to himself, but when these sounds are made, the pure white flame in his eyes begins to beat violently. Sangming boundary, because the distance is too far, Tian naturally can't hear what the tall skeleton said. Even if you hear it, you will only smile with disdain at most. What bullshit mountain and river seal, something that Lao Tzu made casually, has not been named yet.
You just give it a good name. Do you have the right to name it?
At this time, his gesture moved again, and the magic weapon Tian flew back to his hands again, revealing the shock caused by Tian's smashing. Under the seal, there was a complete vacuum, and there was no living white skeleton. However, the Ming ancestral altar, which was originally emitting white light, had changed back to its original shape, one by one, like many collapsed long-legged white bone tables, which had become scattered, and some even directly cracked into countless pieces of white bones. However, what makes Tian feel a little strange is that after the magic weapon seal was smashed, the white bones and skeletons that began to disperse around him did not know why, but stopped their collapsing bodies. At the next moment, they returned to him as if they had been beaten with chicken blood. As if they were not afraid of Tian's magic weapon seal, countless bone artifacts flew out of thin air and shot at Tian densely.
Something's wrong. Tian urged him to escape from Tiansua and arrived in the distance in a flash.
According to the experience of previous times, the bones and skeletons did not return after their collapse, but this time it was quite different.
This all over the sky with bone knife and gun to shoot their own attack method obviously has not achieved any effect, but they still use this stupid way?
While pondering, those white bones move again, all rushing towards Tian's direction, and there are still countless bone artifacts projected, as if they would not kill Tian in this way.
This situation made Tian think about it.
He hid Dun Tiansua with his magic power. Instead of staying here too much, he went straight to the distance. He felt that the underworld army was strange.
Tian is coming.
700 or 800 miles away, nearly 10,000 disciples of the eight sects were marching slowly.
Suddenly, someone called out.
In fact, there is no need for him to shout. Almost all the disciples of the eight sects are observing the situation of Tian. They move very slowly, but they just delay time.
Now that they have so many Bai Gumingxiu, they don't want to fight with Tian.
Wait for Tian's friars to be destroyed by the skeleton, isn't it fragrant? If the ancestors of the sect had not sent them in, those disciples who came in later would never have wanted to wait in such a chaotic world. However, even if they are passive and lazy in fighting, what they need to find is to find out after all. They did not expect that Tian, who had been fighting with the white skeleton, would suddenly fly to his side.
Fellow Taoists, how to deal with it? At present, the number of disciples of the eight sects is almost the same.
Li Huozong no longer has the advantage in number.
Qin Lang is no longer the top leader of the eight sects alliance.
The other 7 sects have joined many new forces. However, because they sent too many disciples to Li Huozong in the previous period, there are not many Jindanjing disciples to send. In the hands of the second group of dispatchers, there are only a few disciples from Huozong. However, seeing Tian coming here, he habitually asked the leading disciples of the 7 sections.
Avoid the war.
The other 7 said these 2 words almost without hesitation. It's really a good strategy to subdue people without fighting. Let those bones work hard with him. Qin Lang, who looked like a military master, said with great eloquence, but his face also turned red. Everyone knows that such an excuse is just a cover-up, and the fundamental reason is not to be afraid of Tian.
Think about it.
Nearly 10,000 monks, all of them in Jindan realm, are afraid of Tian, who is only in Longmen realm.
This will definitely become a nightmare and a demon in their cultivation career. However, in the face of life and death, what is face?
Although this layer of window paper exists, but no one goes to pierce it. Under the principle of being dignified and aboveboard, the disciples of the eight sects, who seem to be using the strategy of marching, began a strategic retreat similar to a rout.
A bunch of cowards.
This is the so-called eight-sect disciple of Taimanlingyu. With a sneer in his heart, Tian hid Dun Tiansua with a magic power. Dun Tiansua turned into a streamer and disappeared in the sky. It didn't take long to catch up with the eight-sect monks who fled.
Scattered. At this time, Qin Lang gave a loud shout to the disciples of Li Huozong. The horror of Tian's seal magic weapon was obvious to all. They absolutely didn't want to gather together and let Tian fall into the pit. Scattered? Do you think it's a divorce? Let it go, let it go?
Dun Tiansuo's speed sword turned into a white light, flew over the heads of the 8 sect monks, and went straight ahead. Across the scattered chaos of human figures, directly intercept in the direction of those people fleeing forward. See countless figures, see Tian appear in front, suddenly stop, quasi-body fly away, return to the direction of origin again.
At this time, Tian's magic weapon Tian didn't come out immediately. He made a mental move.
More than 10,000 wire ants turned into a black cloud and appeared beside him. Then the black shadow flashed to the left. The next moment, Tian's original spirit fire was also called out, and the terrible flame turned into a huge 3-color fire phoenix in the air, and flew to the right side very fast. In this way, Tian, a monk of the 8 sects gate, intercepts them in the front. On the left side, there are more than 10,000 iron line ants that only make those monks fear, and on the right side, there is a more terrifying spirit fire. There's one short of 3. The life gate left for the 8 sects to escape was in the direction pursued by countless white bones and underworld people. In this direction, the white bones and skeletons who chased Tian seemed to throw out bone knives and guns, and white shadows burst into the sky.
This is a kind of undifferentiated strike. The target shot by the bone is just Tian's position, but not just Tian.
It also includes the friars of the 8 sections. This was not thought of by the friars of the 8 sections. All over the sky bone knife bone gun such as rainstorm general shot, 8 sect monks can't help but face a change, hastily each means to resist. Although the attack of bone knife and bone gun is very powerful, this kind of thrown bone were is not irresistible to the friars in the golden elixir realm. When the friars of the 8 sects were dealing with the bone objects thrown by the white skeleton, who had formed an alliance, the white army of the white skeleton Ming Xiu, like a rolling tide, had come near. The sky and the earth are full of skeletons. It seems that these white bone monks didn't see the 8 sect monks. They didn't care about their existence and didn't deliberately attack them. It was totally a feeling of ignorance. They ran straight ahead and continued to throw dense bone artifacts to one side in the direction of Tian. Boom! At a certain moment, the friars of the 8 sects finally ushered in the endless white bone repair, and the teams on both sides bumped into each other.
Damn, is this still an ally?
With a curse, Qin Lang turns to join the white bone army and flies to the position where Tian is. His speed was fast enough and his reaction was fast enough to avoid the collision of the great army of Baigu Mingxiu for the first time, but the other 8 sect monks were not so lucky. The friars of the 8 sects, who reacted a little slower, collided with the white bone army, and the conflict between the two sides stopped. How can the friars of the 8 sects be willing to drown in the tide of white bones and skeletons? At the time of sudden danger, self-protection is a kind of instinct. At this time, there is no so-called alliance. In the case of no resistance or death, they angrily move to the front of Mingxiu, trying to open a way of blood, penetrate the endless bones and skeletons, and escape from the other side. However, when they started, the white bones and skeletons were no longer just a simple collision, but frantically fought back. They took the 8 clan friars as their mortal enemies, and they were merciless. That's crazy! Tian murmurs in the distance, and drives Dun Tiansuo away from the attack range of Baigu Mingxiu's endless bone implements. The Iron Line ants and Ben Yuan Linghua who stopped the friars of the 8 sects also fly over at a high speed. Tian puts them away and flies forward quickly. The madness of Baigu Mingxiu is really against common sense. Their attack is unreasonable. Therefore, Tian Kai has the idea to drive the friars of the 8 sects to fight against the Baigu army. However, this idea is only his wishful thinking, and he does not think that it can definitely cause a fight between the two sides. But in fact, it really came true according to their own ideas. The friars of the 8 sects collided with the white bone army, and there was even a scuffle on both sides. Under such circumstances, Tian can't help but not happy, but has a dignified expression on his face. Endless bones and skeletons did not attack the allied forces of the barbarians and the Terrans, even regardless of the alliance with the 8 sections. This kind of situation, Tian can easily imagine that this is Baigu Mingxiu's pursuit of his own Jedi, which is inevitable. If he doesn't kill himself, he will never give up. Even in order to kill themselves, at any cost, regardless of the collapse of the alliance with the 8 sections. Countless bone artifacts are flying in the sky. On the surface, they seem to be doing useless work.
Because Yi Tianjin is not there, their attack seems futile. However, Yi Tian was very clear in his heart that it was the meditation that blocked his way to escape. Under such a dense and terrifying attack, it is impossible for Yi Tian's Dun Tiansuo to fly upward. Once he flies upward under the dense bone attack, Dun Tiansuo's shield is likely to be broken, and then submerged by the dense white bone army. Even the bone attack exceeds the speed of Dun Tiansuo's shield. Yi Tian's body is very strong and has many means. In this case, meditation may not be able to really hurt himself, but in theory, meditation does not know that his body is strong enough. In meditation, such a blockade offensive should have blocked his way up. The white bones and skeletons rolled in and spread endlessly on both sides, but they forced themselves to retreat step by step. But where could they finally retreat? The boundary of Tsangming is not very big. To a certain extent, it is the end of the boundary of Tsangming. The idea of these skeletons has become clear, that is to drive themselves to the edge of the Tsangming world. And then what's their purpose? It's still a way for the powerful people outside the boundary to encircle and kill themselves there. Under the cover of Yi Tian's divine thoughts, he still found that there were more than a dozen tall white skeletons waiting in the direction where he continued to retreat. Yi Tian didn't fully know the means that he was going to use. Could Tsangming Kingdom, which could stop the attack of the human friars, stop him? In fact, Yi Tian was not sure. After all, Mingxiu was different from the Terran friars. In essence, they were all soul bodies, while the white bones and skeletons were only the bones that carried their soul bodies. While flying away, Yi Tian carefully analyzes it. When Dun Tiansuo was 400 or 500 miles away from the edge of Tsangming Kingdom, he stopped flying. With a gesture, he quickly fell to the ground holding a large dark golden stone about the size of a house in his hands. It was the Shenyang stone that he used to refine the magic weapon of Dian. This Shenyang stone was put on the ground by Yi Tian. Then he put away Dun Tiansuo, and the magic weapon Dian enlarged and placed beside the Shenyang stone. The unarmed Yi Tian jumps on the magic weapon seal, and his 1,000-year-old peach tree thunder sword appears in his hand, gazing at the approaching army of the underworld. Before long, the army of Baigu Mingxiu came to the magic seal. As you can see from your eyes, due to the influence of gravity field, the speed of Meishiu from the front is getting slower and slower. It has moved slowly from Feiduan to Yetian, and has become very difficult. However, those Baigu Mingxiu far away from Yetian's location were not affected. They pushed forward quickly, then turned back and surrounded Yetian from different directions. After a while, the situation on the battlefield changed. Yi Tian on the magic weapon seal was surrounded by countless Baigaming repairs, moving closer to Yi Tian from all directions. In addition to the underground near Yi Tian, there is no Baigu Mingxiu in a certain range. In other directions, the endless Baigu Mingxiu has formed a hemispherical shape, which tightly surrounds Yi Tian in the core and constantly advances towards Yi Tian as the core. However, this kind of promotion can still be realized at the beginning, but it is already difficult for them to make progress within 100 feet or so. This is the first time that Yi Tian has used the gravitational field of Shenyang stone and magic seal at the same time. Baigu Mingxiu is bound by this kind of strong gravitational field. When he approaches 30 or 40 feet, he has become more difficult to move forward. Seeing this, Yi Tian has a general understanding of the gravity field at this time, because now he can't feel the constraint of the gravity field. In other words, he is cheating. Boom! At a certain moment, the Millennium Peachtree Thundersword in Yi Tian's hand suddenly moves, and a terrible thunder flashes out to Baigu Mingxiu, who is trying to keep close to the magic weapon seal. At this moment, the horror of the Millennium Peachtree Thundersword is vividly reflected in these white bones and skeletons in the realm of Hades. A roar came out, and the terrible thunder, which was not affected by the gravity field, meandered out, as if it were a broken void. In the midst of a lot of broken bones, a gap was made in the white bone repair line. As if in slow motion, countless pieces of broken bones were slowly moving in the air, and then slowly falling down. But the white skeleton's encirclement circle was made a gap by the thunder, as if there was a crack in a big bowl in the leaf sky. Not bad. Yi Tian also secretly nodded his head. Before entering the peak period of Longmen realm, the power of the Millennium Peachtree Thundersword was far less powerful than it is now.
Once in the hands of Xuanxie and Yunzhong, this 1,000-year-old peach tree thundersword can kill the spirit of blood evil king, which is equivalent to transforming the divine realm. It's much easier to deal with the underworld who only has the golden elixir realm. The gap blasted by the 1,000-year-old peach tree thundersword is slowly made up by the white skeleton, and the encirclement is complete again. On the surface, the destruction of dozens of white skeleton has not left any trace, and the white skeleton is still making endless efforts to get close to itself. But their movements are more and more difficult and slower. When they get close to the distance of about 30 feet, they have moved forward inch by inch. Although the speed is very slow, they are still moving forward bit by bit. Up to now, Tian has fully understood the influence of gravity field on Bai Guomingxiu. In the process of getting close to Tian, those white bone practitioners are still throwing out many bone artifacts, but all this is in vain. Countless bone knives and bone swords, far less than the endurance of those meditation, flew out of the influence range of the gravity field. The speed of those bone knives and bone guns slowed down greatly, and finally stopped completely. They slowly fell to the ground, causing no damage to Tian. After several rounds of such firing, the attack of bone knife and bone gun finally disappeared, leaving endless white bones and skeletons to continue to move forward slowly, trying to finally encircle Tian. Boom! 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 At this time, Tian, who had already known the influence of gravity field on Bai Guomingxiu, no longer deliberately cleaved Leishu's sword continuously, and thunders cleaved toward those Bai Guomingxiu, and then opened the gaps and closed them again. The next moment, he thought, the original spirit fire was called out again. With the power of terror, the fire flashed to Bai Guomingxiu. Thunder and flame are not affected by the gravity field, and they are killing Mingxiu recklessly. The flame is rampant around the magic seal. The skeleton, which has been close to the magic seal within 30 feet, has been killed, and the sight is widened. However, the white bones and skeletons around the outside are still moving forward, fearless. At this time, he will not miss this situation, which is completely beneficial to Tian. The 1,000-year-old peach tree thunder sword showed great power. It split down, and then the thunderbolts were sent out to kill Bai Guomingxiu within the attack range mercilessly. Even so, in Tian's imagination, those Bai Guomingxiu should see that their attack is meaningless. Maybe they will give up the attack and don't have to die in vain. However, the opponent's attack is extremely persistent. The former Bai Guomingxiu dies, while the latter still makes up for it. It seems that even death will consume Tian's mana, making Tian unable to recover his mana quietly. It's interesting, isn't it stupid? In this case, Tian can't help shaking his head. It's hard for him to recover his mana. He has many pills to recover his mana, and he has taken them. He is replenishing his mana while consuming his mana. Although the speed of replenishment is far less than that of consumption, it is equivalent to reducing your mana consumption. Moreover, even if the mana is exhausted, he still has the liquid of creation, which can instantly restore the mana. This is an extremely stupid way of fighting. Little by little, Bai Guomingxiu's attack continued all the time. Without any accident, all the Baigu skeletons at the front were mercilessly killed by Tian. There were more and more dead Baigu skeletons. Around the magic weapon seal, countless broken Baigu skeletons had been piled up into hills, and Tian's magic weapon seal was located in the same place. Because of the existence of white bones and bodies like hills around, it seems to have become a basin. It can be seen how many dead bones there are. Even so, those meditations still did not retreat, but continued to surround Tian, as if even if tired, but also tired to death. Why is that? What is their purpose? At a certain moment, Tian suddenly felt as if he had touched the truth of the matter. Kill yourself. If you can't kill, stop yourself from entering Tsangming. This is the Tsangming world. When everyone comes here, they will eventually run to the Tsangming world. Even the white bone repair may be the same. If it wasn't for Tsangming Kingdom, why did they come here? And they had made enough preparations, otherwise, so many endless white bones meditation could not appear here quietly. Otherwise, why did the hell repair collude with the Tai? To understand the situation of the other 7 sects, the jade slips of Tai's message contains the information about the disciples of Jindanjing. Isn't this for the sake of preparing for Mingxiu's entering the Tsangming world? Although later forced by the situation, the Eight Sects and the White Bone Skeleton Alliance, who knows if it is the plan of the White Bone Mingxiu to postpone the war and use the friars of the Eight Sects? Even before, he had a whim to drive the Eight Sect disciples into the attack area of Baigu Mingxiu. However, there was a real conflict between the two sides. Baigu Mingxiu carried out an indiscriminate attack on their allies. Who knows that those White Bones and Hell practitioners didn't do it intentionally? Didn't they use this method to destroy the Eight Sects' golden elixirs? Isn't it to clear the way for Baigu Mingxia to enter Tsangming world? Moreover, Yi Tian even thought that before entering the Tsangming kingdom, Xian Run had asked a young man who was driving a flying horse in Langya animal car shop about the situation, and there was a very beautiful woman sitting in the carriage of the animal car. However, he felt that this woman was a little strange. Later, because of the reason that Shen Tianfang, the ancestor of Qingyun sect, searched herself, this woman flew out of the carriage. At that moment, the strength she showed actually had the accomplishments of a great friar in Yupu realm. Now I think that the woman should be the meditation, just wearing a very special physical body with bones, and his soul body and the physical body with bones are completely integrated together, so under the light of his own eye, he did not see through. Or, it was originally a living body with bones, which was totally different from the ordinary body with bones, but under the control of meditation, it was always a little different from the Terran, so I felt strange. Thinking of this, Yi Tian suddenly thought of flying snow. Duan Fei Xue. The woman of Duanjian Mountain Villa, who was rescued from the Ghostland, was in the realm of Golden Elixir, meeting the conditions of entering Tsangming Kingdom. This woman once said that when she was taken captive, she wanted to be used as a body and bone by the Empress of the Underworld. Is that woman the queen of the underworld? The more you think about it, the more strange Yi Tian feels. It seems that the underworld is really engaged in a big conspiracy that has been brewing for a long time. And all the spearheads of this plot point to Tsangming world. What is the secret hidden in the world of Tsangming? Is it really just because of Pluto Flower and Soul Yuan? Or there is a big secret that only the high level of the Hell Monk knows, but the Terran friars don't get the slightest information? With such a guess, Yi Tian quickly connects some unimportant pictures he saw before. By the way, since he entered the Tsangming kingdom, he didn't pay attention to it anymore after he got several Tsangming decrees. The battle with the disciples of the Eight Sects began. Up to now, Tsangming orders are still erupting occasionally in the Tsangming world. He once saw a skeleton collecting Tsangming orders intentionally or unintentionally. If it's not the other party's collecting habit, it must be a plot. What's more, when the White Bones and Skeletons army killed Tsangming kingdom, many human friars were driven into Tsangming kingdom. What's the reason? If it's just a conspiracy to unite with the Eight Sects, their ultimate goal is to get rid of these potential opponents who may have entered the Tsangming world. Why do they let so many disciples of the Eight Sects enter the Tsangming world again? Yi Tian certainly won't believe that in such a powerful situation, the Eight Sects still send in the disciples of the Golden Elixir realm, who are not so powerful. Isn't there any influence of the ghost cultivation? There are also those barbarian warriors. If Baigu Mingxiu tries his best to stop them, I'm afraid those barbarian warriors may not be able to enter Tsangming kingdom smoothly. At least, there should be some fighting between Mingxiu and the barbarians about this. However, in fact, it didn't seem that the practice of the ghost world didn't prevent more people from entering the Tsangming kingdom. And they were more keen on killing the human friars who entered the Tsangming kingdom, no matter they were from the 27 sects, the 8 sects or the barbarians. These are all within the scope of their destruction. The more Yi Tian thinks about it, the more creepy he is. These skeletons that besieged him were not stupid, nor were they simply brave and fearless of death, but they were certainly carrying out the orders of the high level of the underworld. They nailed themselves here at all costs, and did not give themselves a breath. To pay such a high price, there must be a shocking conspiracy behind it. Thinking of this, Yi Tian's face can't help looking a little ugly. At the next moment, he made a gesture, and a series of thunder continued to send out. All of them attacked a certain direction. The original spirit fire was also following the thunder attack, wantonly devouring the life of this direction. Soon, there was a big gap in the attacked position, while the rest of the meditation began to supplement slowly.
At this time, Tian made a move, and the magic weapon Big Seal flew up in the air and fell to the gap 30 zhang away. Here is a high bone mound.
All of them are left by the white skeleton attacking Tian and are part of the surrounding circular bone mound. Then the next moment, Tian holding Shenyang stone in both hands, figure jumped up, came to the Big Seal magic weapon next to, put down Shenyang stone again. It's much higher than the previous basin and has a wider view. The final field suddenly moved here made many white bones and skeletons immediately sink into the gravity field, and even some close white bones and skeletons could only move a little bit, let alone launch a lethal attack.
Boom! 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 The 1,000-year-old Peachtree Thundersword and the original Spirit Fire launched a devastating attack at the same time, and quickly cleared the white bones and skeletons within 40 or 50 feet around the magic seal. The next moment, his original Spirit Fire quickly magnified, changed into a 10-foot size, and rushed straight to Baigu Mingxiu. Hundreds of Baigu Mingxiu were burned by the original Spirit Fire of Terror and turned into firemen. However, Hufeng Wang didn't stop attacking and still flew in the direction of the Ming army. Where the fire went, white bones and skeletons began to dodge. But the Flame Phoenix did not attack the white bones and skeletons on the way. Instead, it rushed forward and burned them violently. In this case, a gap appeared in front of him, but the white skeleton behind the Flame Phoenix quickly closed the encirclement, as if to prevent Tian from taking this opportunity to escape. However, Tian, who stands aloof on the Big Seal magic weapon, doesn't mean to break through. He just looks coldly at the direction of the fire. Occasionally, a thunder comes out to kill the white bones and skeletons that are close together. Although most of the skeletons along the way gave way, some of the skeletons that were too slow to respond were killed by the Fire Phoenix and became gray ashes. When the Fire Phoenix rushed out of the encirclement circle, it didn't leave. Instead, it swaggered outside for a few circles, and then the flame suddenly became bigger. The Phoenix's body turned into 2 feet or so, and then it flashed and rushed in again. Those white bones repair all tried the Fire Phoenix's fierce, see it fly again, quickly to both sides to avoid. They didn't fight against the fire either, because bone weapons and attacks like bone spears and bone swords are useless to the fire. Fire Phoenix did not deliberately attack a skeleton, it just along the original road to continue to fight in the encirclement. But no one saw that behind the Fire Phoenix, there was a group of invisible dead people following it to the encirclement. On the magic weapon seal, Tian looks at the location of the Fire Phoenix, and his heart is finally released. This time, the white bones and skeletons were very good. They were better than the Fire Phoenix when they rushed out. They didn't intercept more. They all got out of the way. In this way, those who were led by Fire Phoenix can drive straight in without any risk and join with themselves. It's only a short distance for the Fire Phoenix and the dead who have reached the peak of the Golden Elixir realm. Soon, the dead rushed in with the Fire Phoenix. There were 73 dead men who came in, all of them wearing the precious clothes refined by Tian. Seeing that Tian was surrounded, the dead rushed to escape. Tian sent a message to them and ordered them to enter the encirclement with the Fire Phoenix. Because they are dressed in treasure clothes, the gravity field here has no influence on them, and they can move freely. Tian sends a message to them and orders them a few words. He erases the soul from the 1,000-year-old Peachtree Thunder Sword and gives it to one of them. This dead man named Luo Tao suddenly appeared. He took over the Millennium Peachtree Lei Shu Sword, quickly recognized the Lord, and then poured out his magic power. With a wave of Lei Shu Sword, a thunderbolt flew out to Baigu Mingxiu in a certain direction. Boom! There was a sound, and 7 or 8 of them were broken by the thunder. Although the thunder he sent out was not as powerful as that of Tian, it was definitely a nightmare of Baigu's. The 72 dead men who were still invisible were scattered around, standing at a distance of more than 20 zhang from the magic seal. A moment later, there was Mingxiu approaching the stealthy defending dead men, and the half-immortal soldier's flying sword in the dead men's hands was instantly released. Those approaching Baigu Mingxiu were bound by the gravity field and moved slowly, but they were attacked by the dead men who were not bound by the gravity field. Immediately, one by one, the white bones and skeletons flew across and turned into debris. Seeing this, Tian was completely relieved. With a gesture, he took out the space-time tower, put it on the magic seal, then closed the door of the prohibition, went in, and then opened the prohibition again. Brother Yi Tian, I can't move when I see you come in. It's hard to breathe. In the spacetime tower, Ear stands up and greets with a smile. At this time, due to the opening of the forbidden gate of the spacetime tower, the people in the tower are no longer affected by the gravity field. Son, don't talk nonsense, you, tease your Yi Tian elder brother, when did you learn to be like this? Qin Luotian also stood up and said with a smile. Yi Tian, is there something urgent to deal with again? Immediately, he sees Leaf Day full-faced dignified appearance, ask away. Yi Tian nodded, yes, the situation outside is very serious, there are really very important things to deal with. Then hurry up. Qin Luotian said no more. He knew that when Yi Tian came to the time and space tower to deal with things, most of them focused on the special factor of 3 times the time flow rate here. As for whether there was her own reason, she was always guessing in her heart, but she didn't know. Ah, man heart, sea needle. She sighed in her heart. She went back to the futon and sat down. She didn't say any more. She just looked at Yi Tian quietly. Er is the same, the disappointed look on his face flashes away, and then he also sits back beside Qin Luogod, leaning on Qin Luogod's thigh with his elbow, holding incense skills in his hand, and looking at Yi Tian with his eyes flickering. The two beauties are both very resentful, but Yi Tian doesn't pay much attention to them. Instead, he moves his hand and takes out a puppet of martial spirit. Yuan Tian's eyes shine through and looks inside. Ah, Sister Luotian, you see, Brother Yi Tian seems to be more interested in this kind of doll. He's still a girl. The son of the hand support fragrant cheek says to Luotian in a low voice. It's not a doll, but a puppet of martial spirit. Your brother Yi Tian said that last time. Qin Luotian whispered. Last time you said that there was a kind of puppet on the Earth star that was very similar to this kind of puppet. What's the difference between them? What's that for? Er asks curiously. Stop talking nonsense. Qin Luotian's face turned red to his neck and covered Er's mouth. Yi Tian suddenly raised his head and looked at Qin Luotian and Er. He wanted to talk and stop, but he finally shook his head and laughed, and looked down at his martial spirit puppet. However, he felt that he was full of black lines, and he was not in the time and space tower. What did these two women talk about? The original Er used to be such a simple person, but now he has such a wide range of knowledge. It seems that women always have a side that men can't see. Can you blame yourself for that? This kind of martial spirit puppet was originally made into a human figure. Its purpose is to make it look like a real person. Naturally, it has the appearance of a man as well as a woman. This is very normal. However, he inadvertently took out a woman's appearance of the martial spirit puppet. Without any trace, he shook his head and began to concentrate on the study of martial spirit puppets. A moment later, he opened the mechanism behind the ghostless puppet and reached in. First, he took down the best fairy jade inlaid in it. Then, after groping inside for a while, he took out an irregular metal plate with a slot. There are complex runes on the metal plate. Many runes are connected or superimposed, which looks very messy. Yi Tian looks at it, one by one. If the best fairy jade is the motive force of the martial spirit puppet, then this metal plate is the movement system of the martial spirit puppet. Through the previous use, although the martial spirit puppet has played a great role, Yi Tian is not very satisfied with it. The first intolerable flaw is the excessive consumption of the best Xianyu. Even Duntiansuo, a higher level of Yi Tian, does not have such consumption. In terms of fuel consumption, this is not the difference between cars and off-road vehicles, but between motorcycles and tanks. If Yi Tian didn't have a deep understanding of rune patterns, and had a good command of rune patterns, he would not have tried to improve these puppets. Consuming so much Xianyu, his speed and attack power are only in the early stage of Yuanying, which is why Yi Tian feels that there is a flaw in his beauty. Looking at the rune patterns on the metal plate, Yi Tian meditates for a while. Then he takes out an empty white jade slip and depicts the rune patterns recorded in his ancient book against Dun Tiansuo and on Yuan Mountain. In this way, time passed bit by bit, and more than 2 hours passed unconsciously. At a certain moment, Yi Tian put down his jade slip and looked at the metal plate beside him. He looked up and pondered for a moment.
His frown gradually stretched out, as if he had finally made up his mind. Right thumb and mid pinched together, orchid finger on a fire slowly emerged, and then turned into a slender line of fire. The original spirit fire is fighting outside, and he learned the Zhang-Yang sex method of firepower exchange by searching the soul of Brahma King. He can use the firepower from outside to operate here. The line of fire was carefully suspended on the metal plate. Under the constant movements of Yi Tian's complicated gestures, it turned into a strange shape and then fell steadily. The high temperature of the flame makes the metal plate print the traces of complex lines in a flash, which are connected with the original runes. It looks more complex and obscure. After printing this trace, the line of fire suddenly flew up. Yi Tian turned his hand again and continued to manipulate the line of fire to form a new complex figure.
Then he printed it again.
In this way, 3 times later, Yi Tian picked up the line of fire and put it away. Looking at the rune veins on the metal plate, which are quite different from the original ones, I checked them carefully, and then hit them with magic. Every time the mana strikes, the runes give off a light, flash and disappear again.
Until the last time, Yi Tian's formula repeatedly pinches and pours on the ground.
When the mana is down again, all the runes suddenly light up, and all the lights flash together.
Yes. Yi Tian stands up excitedly and drinks a low voice. The whole person's state is different.
These runes can form a hole and emit light, which shows that the metal plate can be installed in it, and the martial spirit puppet can also be used. However, it is hard to see what kind of realm the ghost puppet can reach after the specific transformation.
We need to try to know.
However, if these rune patterns can light up, Yi Tian already has a premonition that there is absolutely no problem with his thinking. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Yi Tian calms his breath as much as he can. Then he picks up the metal plate and looks at it carefully.
He calls out a line of fire again.
He carefully cuts a part of the metal plate for a moment and opens a new slot on the metal plate. The edge of the card slot is just surrounded by those complicated runes in the middle. After this, Yi Tian breathed out a long breath again, took the card slot and put it into the puppet's body again, and then restored the piece of jade that he had taken out before. After closing the mechanism behind the martial spirit puppet, Yi Tian's mind moves. The puppet suddenly gets up and makes various movements with Yi Tian's mind.
This is Yi Tian testing the flexibility and speed of the puppet. This experiment took about 2 minutes. At first, Yi Tian, who was still worried, gradually showed a satisfied smile. Through experiments, the improved Wuhuan is much faster and more flexible than before.
As far as speed is concerned, Yi Tian can judge that the deficit after the transformation has reached the level of the late Yuanying, which has improved 2 small levels.
As for strength, Yi Tian once again takes out a puppet without transformation.
The 2 puppets stand opposite each other in the Tower of Time and Space. At a certain moment, they each give a hand and finish a fight. With a bang, the reformed martial spirit puppet did not move in the same place, but the one without transformation flew upside down and bumped into the inner wall of the Time and Space Tower. Yi Tian's idea moves again, and the reformed martial spirit puppet suddenly flies up. Before another martial spirit puppet collides with the Time and Space Tower, he grabs it and slowly puts it on the ground.
Good.
Yi Tian excitedly said that no matter what the future test results are, at least the reformed martial spirit puppet has reached the strength of the late Yuanying realm in terms of attack power and speed, and Yi Tian has been considered a success. However, Yi Tian is still full of expectations for the later experiments. The gesture moves again, and Yi Tian throws a flying sword forward. The reformed martial spirit puppet takes it and makes all kinds of flexible movements, such as splitting, chopping, stabbing, lifting, chopping, cutting and chipping. The martial spirit puppet does all the movements that the flying sword can do, without any flaw, as if he were a real monk. Yi Tian looks at it quietly, with a stronger smile on his face. At a certain moment, one of his thoughts is over, and the reformed martial spirit puppet stops moving. The status of the reformed martial spirit puppet in his mind has risen again. The original martial spirit puppet that has not been reformed cannot use weapons. Maybe you can simply hold the weapon, but you can't make such a precise attack. On the contrary, it's not as pleasant as unarmed attack. In this way, the flexibility of the reformed martial spirit puppet will be greatly increased when it is time to use the fist and when it is time to use the magic weapon. After the transformation of the martial spirit puppet is called back to him, Tian opens the mechanism behind it again, and inserts a best fairy jade into the newly opened slot. After closing the mechanism again, Tian makes another experiment. The addition of a top-quality fairy jade has no effect on the performance of the martial spirit puppet, and there is no difference between before and after. It's not for the purpose of increasing the fighting power of the martial spirit puppet that an extra piece of top-quality fairy jade is added. The combat effectiveness is the most important, but it depends on the strength of the animal soul in the puppet, and how much combat effectiveness it can play has something to do with the rune pattern. Let's see how much bonus the rune pattern can add to the animal soul's strength. If we say that the martial spirit puppet is a car and the best fairy jade is the fuel, adding a best fairy jade drive will not change 4 cylinders into 8 cylinders, but expand its fuel tank. Make the power more economical and lasting. There are many defects in the original puppets before the transformation, which lead to a great waste of the power of the best fairy jade, and the consumption of the best fairy jade is too fast. If Tian wants to constantly replace these worthy puppets with the best fairy jade in the fierce battle, it will be very annoying. He feels that he has not found a helper, but a father to serve him. After the transformation, Tian's change in the rune pattern is to maximize the power of the best fairy jade. Then a slot is added to install the best fairy jade, which can be regarded as a backup power. When the best fairy jade in the first slot is exhausted, the power of this piece of fairy jade will be automatically added, and the martial spirit puppet can continue to fight. This is Tian's general idea, such as flexibility, strength, speed and other indicators, which can be tested now, but as for durability, it can only be tested by actual combat in time. Tian can't give an absolute answer now, but according to his own feeling, there should be no problem. Even if the second slot doesn't work, Tian is very satisfied with the changed soul puppet. After the experiment, Tian Lu pondered, and a half-immortal soldier flying sword appeared in his hand. He threw it to the reformed martial spirit puppet. He has a lot of flying swords in his hand. Now it's time to give the soul puppet the best equipment. The flying sword that was tested just now is just a very common magic weapon. In the coming cruel battle, Tian will not be stingy anymore. The first martial spirit puppet was successfully tested, and Tian started the transformation of the second martial spirit puppet. After the first experience, all the processes of transforming the martial spirit puppets are natural and easy to master, so the speed is faster and faster. All the runes are in Tian's mind. You can easily turn the thread of fire into complex runes and imprint them on the metal plate of the martial spirit puppet. Tian's speed is getting faster and faster. The so-called who can be clever is fully revealed here. There is no way, time is money, efficiency is life, now the overall situation outside is not optimistic, leave Tian time is not much. He has always been paying attention to the situation in other places through the heart-connecting insects in the Tsangming world. Once there is any situation, he naturally wants to leave here to deal with it. It is impossible to predict when accidents will occur. In the Tsangming world, almost all the Baigu Mingxiu were besieging Tian. On the contrary, they were the barbarians and the 5 members of the 27 sections. These people are all in the same place to open their minds and feel the situation on the battlefield. Najiak, once a barbarian prince, wanted to take people to meet Tian, but others stopped him. The situation on the battlefield is clear at a glance, and it is obvious that Tian now has absolute initiative. Tian's means make those skeletons helpless. From a distance of nearly 1,000 miles, the Terran monks could not sense the existence of gravity field at all, but the various situations of meditation were clearly revealed, and the situation that they were greatly constrained and difficult to walk was clear. Although I don't know why, these monks all know that it must be Tian's means. Tian's many means have numbed these friars. Originally, some people had the idea to compare with Tian. However, as Tian showed more and more thunder means and became more and more terrifying, these people have lost their arrogance in human nature. Nothing else, but as far as mana is concerned, these golden elixir monks ask themselves, no one thinks they can be stronger than Tian. Although these people have reached the golden elixir cultivation. In this case, to rescue Tian, it is not to help, but to help. Everyone knows that Yi Tian has entered the magic cave, but no one knows what Yi Tian is going to do. Not to mention them, even those dead people who are surrounded by white bones and skeletons don't know. Their mission is to complete their task according to Yi Tian's command. And the task that Yi Tian told them was to stop those white bones and skeletons and keep them away from the magic seal. It's not difficult for the dead who kill Baigu Mingxiu like cheating under the blessing of gravity field. From the monk's telepathy here, outside the magic weapon cave, there is a strange monk with a sword and a thunder attack. This man also shows his magic power. However, more and more people are attacking and killing the white bones and skeletons. As time goes on, a white bone hill rises around the big seal magic weapon. There are countless dead bones and skeletons. Under the attack of the invisible can't be seen. The death of those bones and skeletons is baffling. However, these friars are not ignorant people. They can guess that there are many invisible people under Yi Tian, but no one knows how many. For them, Yi Tian is a mystery. Outside the boundary of Tsangming. At the gathering place of the King of Man and the ancestors of the 27 small clans, the King of Man was watching the war situation in the Tsangming world with those ancestors, and occasionally had a few words of conversation. In the sky, 3 aura ripples appear, which is particularly attractive. When they looked up into the air, they saw another 4 strong barbarians step out of the room, ready-made. Man 1, we're back. One of them said out loud, and together with the other 2, they smashed to the ground like meteorites. In fact, it's just that the falling speed is a little faster and the falling process has been ignored. This situation is no different from smashing. The earth shook with a cry, and then the 3 barbarians jumped out of the pit and fell to the king again. I hope we are not late. It seems that the situation is not bad. The strong man who spoke before was Taesion. His mind covered Tsangming world. He took a long breath. How many people have you brought? Manwang didn't answer him. He asked directly. This time, the 3 of us brought a total of 53,200 people. Because the time is too short, we can only gather those who have the strength to enter the Tsangming world. I'll let them in. Tall Taeseong bowed his head and said, as if he had done something wrong. He also felt that it took him so long to bring so few people. It was true that he was a negative man. However, Manwang waved his hand and said, don't worry, let them in. For the time being, there is no danger for the prince. Even more than 50,000 people can't solve the big problem. Taeseong, you see, there are too many ghost things in the ghost area. There are so many white bones and skeletons waiting to enter. He said, pointing to the distance. Even if you don't have to look, Taeseong and others know that there are countless white bones and skeletons there. When they left here, the meditation had already arrived. We thought we must be late this time, because the distance is too far to feel the situation here. If we had known that there was no danger now, we might as well have come a little later, so that we could gather more people. Otherwise, Man 1, let's go back and continue to bring people here. Before we leave, we have sent an order to let the warriors of Jindan Kingdom gather in the King's city as soon as possible. As for the other high-level strongmen, they have also been ordered to come here, because the magic cave can't carry so many people. Their speed is slower, and it will take 5 or 6 days to get there. Tie Xiong took a look at the endless Ming Shou army and said in a gruff voice. Manwang waved his hand again, it's not necessary to go back. Now that the order has been given, all the warriors of our family are gathering. Even if we start now, we can't bring more people back. Let's take a look here for a moment. The most important thing for us now is to prevent the Ghostland from sending troops in again. Once there is a change there, we should try our best to stop it. We are also short of manpower here. As for those people, 5 or 6 days, though a little late, is better than none. Yes, Manwang. It seems that Yi Tian is very powerful. How could Prince Jacques be with him and enter his magic cave? Taeseong promised and asked. Who is Yi Tian? I don't know yet. It's strange that no one who seems to be too smart knows his background. Such a person who can dominate the world with his accomplishments in Longmen realm should have been well known in Time and Spirit realm for a long time. However, it is strange that this person has not been well known and has never been seen anywhere before. According to Duan Daoyu of Duanjian Mountain Villa, Duan Feishua, the granddaughter of Duanjian Mountain Villa, should be the first one to meet this person.
She was in the ghost land and brought his granddaughter back.
However, there is a space channel in the ghost world, which leads to the spirit world of Luo Tian. So we were just guessing whether this person came from the spirit world of Luo Tian. Man Wang seems to be in a less nervous mood.
He explains Taeseong and others in more detail.
At this time, the ancestors of the Duan family took over the words. In fact, there is another thing that I didn't have a chance to mention. The reason why I speculate that Duan Xiaoyu is from Luotian Lingyu is that he once gave me several pills, and soon after taking one of them, I jumped from the early stage of Yupu realm to the middle stage of Yupu realm. Then, after taking a pill, the state of Yupu in the middle period has gradually stabilized.
I really can't think of any force that can have this ability in the realm of time and spirit. How could there be such a thing?
The king is like his two peas, and the uncivilized look of the baron. The barbarian's practice of refinement is different from that of the monk, but the weapon used is also made according to its own conditions. But the division of the realm is exactly the same. As Jade Pu King's monk, he knows how much time it takes to break a state and how to stabilize a realm. One pill can make Duan's ancestors who have already broken through hopelessness break through Yupu realm. That is not what ordinary pills can achieve. In time and spirit realm, pills with such magical effect are extremely rare.
What I said is true.
If you have something to ask for in the aspect of pills, Xiaoyu can't say that he can help you.
Duan's grandfather said with a smile that, in fact, the reason why he said this was that he wanted to stimulate the strong people present to help Yi Tian at the right time.
In addition to the contacts between Duanjian Villa and Yi Tian, he also appreciated Yi Tian very much.
He also saw that Duan Feishua lived in his magic weapon cave.
Of course, he knew that it was a kind of protection for Duan Feishua, so he sent her in. I don't care much whether Yi Tian can help us. However, the king and even the whole barbarian are people who attach great importance to love and righteousness. Before, the prince sent someone to tell us about them. The reason why the prince was in Yi Tian's magic cave was that he had a conflict with the friars in Zhangyang Palace and was saved by Yi Tian. Later, he was chased by the friars of Qingyun's sect and saved by Yi Tian. In order to protect them, Yi Tian sent them to the magic cave and prepared to escort them back to the barbarians. However, he somehow entered the Songning kingdom here, which led to the current situation.
Manwang didn't hear the voice of Duan's ancestors, but he said frankly.
The old ancestor of the Duan family took the message and said with a smile, the barbarian prince is in the magic cave. Naturally, he doesn't know how Yi Xiaoyu entered Songming, but I was outside Songming at that time.
The whole process is very clear.
That Yi Xiaoyu is in order to avoid the joint pursuit of the ancestors of the eight sects, so that he won't enter the Songming world to escape for a while. Who would have thought that a monk in the realm of Longmen escaped thousands of miles under the pursuit of the ancestors of Yupu realm, the eight great sect, and finally escaped their pursuit? The old ancestor of the Duan family said that he could not help sighing. Many strong barbarians, including the king of barbarians, could not help but look stunned. But the old man continued, besides, Yi Xiaoyu must have a great origin.
I wonder if you can recognize the dark gold seal magic weapon he used.
I have read some relevant records from ancient books, saying that during the war between the ancient people and the underworld was defeated and suffered heavy losses.
One of the immortal tools used by the human power is similar to this dark gold seal.
Once the seal is driven, it can launch a field to suppress the action ability of the underworld.
The defeat of the underworld is directly related to the appearance of the immortal wear. Countless underworld people died under the immortal wear of Tian.
It is recorded in ancient books that the main materials for refining the seal are some kind of natural materials and local treasures produced in the mountains, and another kind of natural materials and local treasures produced in the water, which is called 1 yuan heavy water.
Therefore, the seal is called mountain and river seal in ancient books, mountain and river seal? With a flash of surprise in his eyes, Manwang asked, can you be sure that this seal is the one that defeated the underworld?
The old ancestor of the Duan family was dumbfounded and said with a smile, Manwang is joking. I only see a little bit of records from ancient books, but I can't confirm where I have seen the real seals of mountains and rivers.
But I still have a doubt in my heart. If it's a real seal of mountains and rivers, it's an immortal weapon.
How can Yi Xiaoyu drive it with his accomplishments in Longmen? However, from the reaction of the underworld, it seems that the Ghost Kingdom is also very interested in it. If Yi Xiaoyu didn't use this big seal magic weapon to hurt the underworld and reveal the trace of this seal, the underworld would certainly attack the barbarian warriors and our sect disciples with all their strength. It seems that Yi Daoyu has retained all the allied disciples with his own strength, and this kindness will be great. However, I still have a question in my heart. Why did so many meditation appear when Sangming Kingdom inspired Sangming Order? What was their purpose? At the time when many great friars were talking about diplomacy in Sangming Kingdom, Yi Tian was still nervously reforming the spirit puppet in Sangming Kingdom and in the Time and Space Tower. With the increasing number of the reformed martial spirit puppets, his technique became more and more skillful, and the speed of transformation became faster and faster. Every time the transformation is completed, he makes a little attempt to ensure the success of the transformation. So far, none of them has failed. Yi Tian is very satisfied with the reformed martial spirit puppets. Without exception, Yi Tian equipped them with a magic weapon of Banxian soldiers for every reformed puppet. In addition to his previous accumulation, he thought that there were many Banxian soldiers' flying swords he seized from the disciples of the Eight Sects, especially from Zhengyang Palace and Qingyun sect. According to Yi Tian's conjecture, these flying swords of semi-immortal soldiers should have been accumulated by those sects for many years, so that they have so much stock. But they never thought that they would be cheap. Little by little, the situation outside has not changed much. Yi Tian always pays attention to the wind and grass in the Sangming world, and is ready to go out of the magic cave at any time. Less than 30% of the 8 monks who collided with the barbarians escaped from the ranks of the underworld. Those who could escape were the top disciples of Jindan realm and the 8 sects, and the rest were buried in the army of Baigu Mingxiu. Yi Tian saw that the ancestors of the 8 sects and the tall white skeletons from the Ghost Kingdom seemed to have some quarrels, but the two sides finally didn't start. But the honeymoon period on both sides seemed to have passed like this, and the alliance should be declared to be broken. The ancestors of Batazonman had separated from Begaming practitioners and went to another place alone. They seemed to be talking with their disciples in Sangming Kingdom across Sangming Kingdom. It's time. In Yi Tian's heart, it's no different to have an alliance with the people in the ghost world. It's like having a big loss after all. The disciples of the 8 sects are no longer successful, and after the First World War of Sangming, Yi Tian feels that the power pattern of Taiman's spiritual realm will be completely rewritten. The 8 sects were completely isolated, and the alliance of 27 small sects had been formed, and a tacit understanding had been established with the barbarians. In the future, if you don't want to be destroyed, the 8 sects will surely be a man with their tails between them. After all, once Man Wang knew that the people of Qingyun sect and Zhengyang Palace had killed Najiak, the 8 sects would not give up. But all these things are just after the closure of Sangming Kingdom. At present, Sangming Kingdom has not been completely opened, and we don't know how many variables exist. In order to cope with various possible variables, Yi Tian can only continue to increase his cards. Because once the Sangming Kingdom is closed, he will not only face the pursuit of the 8 sects, but also be pursued by the high realm of the Ghost Kingdom. As a result, Yi Tian remolded the puppet and swallowed the elixir to practice. Time goes by bit. In addition to the magic weapon cave, the underworld army is still charging endlessly towards the dark gold seal magic weapon, as if the seal has endless attraction for them. A batch of white bones and skeletons fell down, but then countless white bones and skeletons came up, one after another, and they didn't know what death was. The one who used the Millennium Peach Tree Thunder Sword had already exhausted his mana, and then another one used the sword to stop the killing. In the endless killing, the dead also lost a lot of mana. While killing Baigu Mingxiu, they took pills to recover their mana. However, the defense circle formed by them is gradually shrinking, not because they can't defend the previous area, but because the smaller the area is, the stronger the binding force of gravity field on Baigu Mingxiu is, and the easier it is to kill. The most indefatigable one is Fire Phoenix, the original spirit fire of Yi Tian controlled by Nirvana Fire Spirit, who has made great contributions in this battle. The ghost cultivation it intercepted far exceeded the sum of the 73 monks, and became the nightmare of all the White Bones cultivation. Outside the boundary of Songming, Shen Tianfang, the founder of Zhengyang Palace, seemed to have a fire in his eyes, and his face was extremely gloomy. There is nothing wrong with the situation outside for the time being. Yi Tian is not concerned about it in his heart and is concentrating on reforming the martial spirit puppet.
There are 200 Wohuan puppets in his hands.
So far, more than 160 have been changed, and the remaining 30 will not take long.
Just as he was busy, the picture in his mind brought the news outside.
Maybe those white bones and skeletons are desperate at last, or they want to lead Yi Tian out through other ways. In a word, some of the white bones in the periphery moved. They left the big team here and began to flee to the direction of the barbarian and Terran allied forces. Yi Tian doesn't pay attention to it, and continues to depict the rune pattern of the martial spirit puppet.
There are more than 40,000 people in the alliance between the Terran and the barbarian. Those people are not made of paper.
They can deal with a certain number of Baigumingxiu by themselves. As time goes on, there are more and more skeletons leaving the team. Yi Tian roughly estimates that at least 40,000 of them have left, but he still doesn't move. There are more and more Baigumingxiu going there, 50,000, 60,000.
More and more. Yi Tian pondered, and finally, he continued to transform his own martial spirit puppet.
He had already seen that the 3 barbarian strongmen Ta Xiong had come to Songming Kingdom before. According to his guess, if these people could leave for such a long time at this critical moment, they must have gone back to the barbarians and asked for help. The barbarian area is much larger than the Terran area, and the entertainment items of the barbarian are less, so the population is also larger than the Terran. In this case, Yi Tian really looked down upon the king of barbarians and many strong barbarians who had been here for such a long time and could not make some arrangements to support Najiak in Songming Kingdom. In the time and space tower, Yi Tian calms down and continues to transform his puppet.
Sure enough, he doesn't mean to support Yi Tian.
The 3 of them took out more than 20 magic weapon caves and lined up on the ground. The warriors in them rushed out, and under the command of the king of barbarians, they gathered in the direction of the barbarians and the allied forces of the human race. Sensing the number of barbarians, Yi Tian has a bottom in his heart. The number of these barbarian warriors is quite large, which has exceeded the number of white bones and skeletons to attack. However, there was no movement in the ghost world. Countless white bones and skeletons were still in the order of tens of miles outside the boundary of Songming, and there was no sign of entering the boundary of Sangming immediately.
The more so, Yi Tian's heart instead made a murmur, in the end what is the idea of Ming Xiu?
The more so, the more he felt an invisible crisis coming quietly. Putting aside all the distractions, he continued to transform the martial spirit puppets. Every time he transformed one more, he would be like an additional monk in the late Yuan dynasty. When he was fighting against all the elixirs, his power could not be ignored. However, the change before was only the beginning. With the barbarian reinforcements entering the Songming Kingdom, finally, after all the barbarian warriors came out of the magic cave and the magic cave was taken up by the 3 men of Taeseong. Outside the boundary of Songming, countless white bones and skeletons tens of miles behind the tall white bones and skeletons finally moved, and they began to flee towards the edge of the boundary of Songming.
Do it!
At this time, the man-king, who had been on guard for a long time, suddenly let out a loud shout and led the barbarian warriors to the surging army of Baigumingxiu.
The ancestors of the 27 little sect did not neglect them.
They followed closely. If they were allowed to enter the Songming world, their disciples would be seriously threatened. However, they were prepared, but it seemed that they were also fully prepared. When Man Wang and others moved, there were more than 20 more aura ripples in the sky above the Ming Xiu army. The next moment, more than 20 white bones and skeletons flew out from inside, a piece of white light flickered, and the white bone objects all over the sky hit the Man Wang and others who had escaped. And dozens of miles away, 16 tall white skeletons also flew to join the regiment. Then the ancestors of the 27 small clans arrived and the war began again. A total of 13 strong Yupu people from the barbarians, together with 27 ancestors of the clan, have come to 40.
On the other hand, there are as many as 42 people of this level.
Although the strong men on the Man Wang side have extremely strong fighting power, the 27 ancestors of Xiazongmen are short-board, while the 42 ones have roughly the same fighting power, which is generally a little better than the ancestors of Xiazongmen. In this way, the barbarians and the patriarch of Zongmen are dwarfed by the powerful meditation, not to mention preventing so many meditation from entering the Zongming world. In the past many years, such a number of strong battles have never appeared in the realm of time and spirit. With the fierce fighting, the battlefield expanded rapidly, covering a distance of hundreds of miles. The bombardment came from all directions from time to time, which was earth-shaking. During the war, ripples suddenly appeared again in the sky. There are 3 aura ripples. When the slight aura ripples float, 3 figures come out of it. 1 tribe, 2 underworld. The figure of the Terran was a nun. She was extremely beautiful and had a very beautiful appearance. As soon as she appeared, her eyes moved and looked forward to her. If Yi Tian is here, you can recognize that this woman is the one in the Pegasus. When I observed with Yuan Tian I felt very strange. Then the carriage broke and the man escaped from Zongming. Xiangjuan. As soon as she appeared, an old man who was fighting with Gao Deming Shou saw her. I can't help shouting.
This man is Gu Zheng'an, the ancestor of Yunluo Mountain.
This woman, to him, is very familiar.
Her name is Gu Xiangjuan.
She is the most beloved younger generation of Gu Zheng'an. He is extremely gifted and gifted. He was less than 40 years old and had already reached the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm. But once, he was in the hinterland of Yunluo Mountain, but it was strange all the time. It has been several months since now. Unexpectedly, he appeared here with 2 powerful white bones and skeletons. Gu Xiangjuan's way of appearing on the stage is also very amazing. He even uses the great move skill of Great Friar Yupu. After a greeting, Gu Zheng'an's expression was stunned, and then he reflected that he was almost defeated by a white skeleton. He can see that this woman is Gu Xiangjuan, but she must not be Gu Xiangjuan herself. She appears with the ghost world, and she must have been manipulated by the ghost world.
At that time, outside Sangming Valley, Gu Zheng'an, the ancestor of Yunluo Mountain, was not at the scene.
If he was there, he would have found Gu Xiangjuan at that time, and he could see something strange.
He reluctantly takes over the powerful Baigu Mingxiu on the opposite side and uses some fierce methods. Gu Zheng'an's body moves. He has been more than 10 miles away.
Under the cover of his mind, he feels Gu Xiangjuan carefully. Everything is the same as the original Gu Xiangjuan, but there is more enchantment in his eyes, and there are many kinds of amorous feelings between his eyes. This is definitely not Gu Xiangjuan, who lives in the Yunluo Mountain, is pure, and does not ask for chores.
You animals!
Gu Zheng'an's eyes were red, his body moved again, and his sword in his hand flew straight to the 2 skeletons beside Gu Xiangjuan. If we can kill these 2 skeletons and control Gu Xiangjuan, we may have a way to save Gu Xiangjuan. At least we can't make her body defiled by some monsters. Cluck, 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 cluck. Who knows, that woman is Zhao to smile a few, flower branch disorderly ground says.
Don't be a Taoist friend. At this time, a figure came, and before Gu Zheng'an had a big fight with the 2 Mingxiu, he grabbed Gu Zheng'an. Impulse is the devil. Gu Zheng'an, with red eyes, seems to have lost his sense at that moment. If he is allowed to go up and work hard, he will fall out of Zongming's realm. It's because he's in a dead posture. Under the attack of 2 Hades, what's the difference between trying to save another enemy who is also in the realm of Hades? The most important thing is that Gu Zheng'an, his good friend, didn't want to move away, otherwise he would not rush up. Go! That's the enemy. Take it easy. When Gu Zheng'an was stopped, the father of the Duan family gave a loud drink.
Before the 2 skeletons came, the father of the Duan family flashed, and Gu himself moved away from here. Originally, the great friars who satisfied with the 27 sects were at a disadvantage. Only the king of barbarians and several powerful barbarians were still at the top, but they could not change the overall situation.
Now the ancestors of Duan family and Yunluo Mountain have left here again. In addition, there are 3 more deities on the side of meditation. The rest of them know that the situation is over now, and they can't stop those who enter the Zongming world. If they try to stop them, they will probably fall here. These people are also very wise.
When they are weak, they will weigh the pros and cons, and then they will get rid of their opponents one after another.
They will use big move and leave in a flash.
In previous wars, this was the case. When someone felt that they were not worth fighting, they would get rid of the regiment. On the other hand, they seldom pursue and kill, because when they pursue and kill, they can't catch up with each other by using the technique of big move. Just as Yi Tian entered the realm of Songming, he used the skill of small moving. When the great friar of Yupu realm delayed to find his whereabouts, he had no choice but to make him enter the realm of Songming. And the final pursuit ended in failure.
Many years later, it became one of Yi Tian's immortal legends in the realm of time and spirit. Gu Dao Yu, this is not the time to be impulsive. If you want to save your people, you must keep your useful body. Otherwise, if you fall, not only the people will not be able to save you, but I'm afraid that if you fall, you will be avenged by the 8 sections. At least you're here, and the 8 sects still have some fears. Hundreds of miles away, Duan's father, who was still holding the old ancestor of Yun Luo Mountain, showed his figure and said quickly with a frown. I can't help blaming this old friend for being too reckless. If the ancestor of Yun Luo Mountain had an accident here, the alliance of 27 small clans would lose a strong one, and its strength would be a little weak. However, he is able to understand each other's mood. After all, Duan Feishue is also his favorite younger generation. Duan Feishue has been missing for some time. If it wasn't for Yi Tian who happened to meet Duan Feishue and rescued her from the ghost world, it would be very possible that the woman who came out of here today would be Duan Feishue. After all, compared with Gu Shangjuan, Duan Feishue has his own advantages in terms of appearance. Generally speaking, some of them are Xian Yun. In terms of qualifications, both of them are equally qualified and have great potential. On the realm, both of them are Elixir realm, and Duan Feishue has been informed that he will become the flesh and bones of the underworld. Perhaps this Gu Shangjuan is just a backup candidate. Because of the disappearance of Duan Feishue, it is possible to use his body. Taoist friend Gu, I have a judgment. Gu Shangjuan should still be alive now, and he can't die for the time being. We have to think of a complete plan to catch the attached meditation. Maybe we can really save your people. Thinking that Duan Feishue was invaded into the ghost area, the other party never meant to end her. Duan's ancestors speculated that, after all, the other party wanted a dead body as an appendage, so naturally she would not stay for too long. Thank you for waking up, Taoist Duan. I'm reckless. After hearing that, Gu Zheng'an, the ancestor of Yun Luo Mountain, nodded slowly and said, then he looked at the rest of the barbarians and the ancestors of the 27 sects who appeared here. They have also implicated you Taoist friends. This interception failed because the underworld had been prepared for a long time. There are also some strong people in our family who are just in the process of closing up and can't be disturbed, otherwise the consequences will be very serious, so they are somewhat weak. Now it's not good for us to fight with the old monsters of the underworld. We'd better wait and see what's going on, and then make plans. I hope there will be a miracle. Man Wang said so and looked anxiously at Songming. What is Yi Xiaoyu doing? Why hasn't he come out yet? Maybe he is the only one who can turn the tide again. The old ancestor of Duan's family is sensing the time and space tower surrounded by the white bones and skeletons of the underworld, murmuring. Yi Tian is so tired. It's hard for him to be such a monk. To tell you the truth, I didn't have a good impression on the Terran friars before. I thought the Terran Xiaoshui was treacherous, cunning, and resourceful. There were countless bad ideas hidden in his head, which was far inferior to the simplicity of our barbarians. But from Yi Tian and other Taoist friends, I understand that there are good people in the human friars, and there are also warriors worthy of the real respect of the barbarians. If Yi Tian can get out of danger safely this time, no matter how my barbarians and even the prince live or die, I will have a good life. Thank him. It's a pity that there are too many pieces in the ghost world. The big seal magic weapon, which obviously consumes a lot of magic power, is not so easy to drive. Yi Tian is tired, and he will die of it. Man Wang said with a sigh. There are some strange things hidden in the world of Songming. In the time and space tower, when Yi Tian saw the beautiful woman appear, he could not help murmuring. If I guess correctly, this person must be the Empress of the Underworld. Even when she went out,
there were 2 white skeleton Mingzuns accompanying her.
This person's arrival must have some amazing purpose, otherwise this afterlife is idle? Do you have to come here?
With the chaos of the situation outside, countless new white bones and skeletons of the underworld entered the Tsangming kingdom again. He saw the battle between the barbarians and the great friars of the human race and many powerful members of the underworld. The fighting scenes of monks of these levels are no longer what he, a little monk in Longmen, can be involved in. While transforming the puppets, he paid more attention to the battle between the barbarians, the Terran allied forces and the white skeleton. Generally speaking, the alliance of barbarian and human friars was superior in number, and their strength was not weak in general. More than 50,000 barbarian warriors who entered the Tsangming kingdom later were all brave. The allied forces of the Terrans and barbarians are close to 100,000 people, so there must be no big problem for the time being.
The problem is that the number of white bones and skeletons put into Tsangming kingdom again is also extremely large, because they have not fully entered Tsangming kingdom, and the specific number cannot be estimated.
However, taking the present as the node, there are 40,000 or 50,000 white bones and skeletons entering the Tsangming world, and there are at least 100,000 white bones and skeletons flying towards the Tsangming world outside the Tsangming world. After they entered the Tsangming kingdom, they all marched towards the alliance of barbarian and human friars. It seems that the intention of the underworld was to eat up nearly 100,000 allied forces of barbarian and human friars first, and then deal with themselves. Because since the withdrawal of some white bones and skeletons, the white bones and skeletons that besieged them did not withdraw anymore. As before, they were still fighting against each other. They died one by one and poured up one by one, as if they were endless. At a certain moment, another martial spirit puppet was transformed by Tian. Instead of experimenting it the first time, he got up and walked out of the time and space tower, moved at random and put it away, then the gesture moves again, the big seal magic weapon rises from the ground, and then slams down to Baigu Mingxiu in the distance. 40 or 50 acres of dark gold magic seal, did not waste any area, all hit the friars in the army. Those meditation practitioners, who want to dodge under the strong gravity field, can't escape at all. Their bodies are bound and can't move. They watch the sky above their heads disappear gradually. Instead, there is a growing dark golden shadow. Then, with a bang, they have been smashed under the big seal. Death Tian drinks again, and the seal magic weapon falls into the ground. Boom, what a mess! Death Tian's mouth and Arota drink, every time drink, is a magic weapon seal smashed, not once smashed, there are a lot of Baigu Mingxiu was smashed to pieces. No matter whether the big seal magic weapon does not rise or fall, many of the surrounding bones are always shrouded in the gravity field. They are hard and slow. There is Xianyang stone about the size of a house beside Tian. The bone in Mingxiu's hand can't even be shot into the front 10 feet of Tian's body. Massacre. It was a total bloodless massacre. Countless white bones died under the seal of the terrible magic weapon. And the original spirit fire of Tian's terror also timely cooperated with the attack, and pieces of white bones were burned, and finally turned into a pool of gray ashes. With Tian as the center, the surrounding vacuum is gradually expanded, and the ground is covered with white bones. Yes. How many thousands of years ago, there must have been a big war, so there are so many bones. That war must have been many times larger than it is now. It may have been a long time since no one knew how these bones were formed. Tian bombards Baigu Mingxiu at the same time, so the idea flashed in his mind, more sure of the previous guess. At a certain moment, Tian put an elixir into his mouth to recover his mana and stopped attacking. Within the scope of the divine sense, those Baigu Mingxiu who had just entered the Tsangming realm and had been attacking by the allied forces of the barbarians and the Terrans, suddenly turned around and flew here. Tian was watching, a little steadfast in his heart. His great display of divine power is to give the underworld an illusion that they are going to break through the encirclement, and to lead the group of white bones to the underworld. Now, his goal has been achieved. As for the puppets that have been transformed, they are not ready to be used. Because the number of them is not enough to shock Mingxiu, Tian plans to use them as a surprise force at a critical time. At present, he can't go back to help the barbarian and Terran friars. If he goes there, the skeleton will follow him. Although the coverage of Dian magic weapon in Xianyang stone is large, it is limited after all, and cannot protect nearly 100,000 allied forces of the two ethnic groups. He's okay himself, but the allied forces of the two ethnic groups may be seriously injured. It's the safest way to attract these two groups of the underworld army to work here and accept the coming of death.
At this time, Yi Tianyao looks at the tide like white shadow flying here quickly.
He always has a doubt in his mind, why so many Baigu Mingxiu are not afraid of the light and sunshine outside.
Why doesn't it have to use skeleton instead of flesh? Is it that there is no body with bones?
Thinking about this, Yi Tian opened his mind and swept the countless white bones on the ground. Then he made a gesture, and a piece of strong leg bone was caught by him, and then he wrapped his mind around it. Once upon a time, in the Ghost Kingdom, he saw that he had left there with a flesh body attached to the bones. He also used the eye of the source heaven to shine through and carefully observed that the flesh body attached to the bones was the same as the flesh body attached to the bones in the spirit kingdom of Luo Tian, who did not return to the sea. After all, the meditation there also comes from the spirit realm of Timon. There are also mysterious purple and gold runes in their flesh and bones. Since all the practices he has come into contact with, whether they are in the earth, in the great wilderness spiritual realm, or in the Luotian spiritual realm, including those in the extremely wild spiritual realm, all have flesh and bones, why don't you enter these practices?
That's not my face. Isn't the mask loose?
Yi Tianji depressed to check this leg bone, there had been traces of divine imprint on it, it is indeed the storage of bone, his divine imprint on it, in the end to see if there is a body bone inside.
The process of recognizing the Lord is very fast.
Soon, this bone storage device has been controlled by Yi Tian, and his mind has penetrated into it. The next moment, a monk's body appears in front of him. Under the light of Yuan Tian's eyes, Yi Tian found his familiar purple gold rune pattern on the corpse.
That's right.
The purple gold rune pattern is the standard of the bone attached to the body. It means the bone attached to the body.
Since there are bones attached to the body, why not use bones attached to the body? The doubt in Yi Tian's heart is more intense.
His mind sweeps once more, and he moves a leg bone with the mark of mind to his hand. After being branded with divine thoughts, he took out a body bone from it again without accident.
After examination, it was confirmed.
Keep looking. Third, fourth, fifth, a total of more than a dozen bone storage devices were examined, and each leg bone had a body-attached bone. These flesh and bones were originally living monks, including male and female monks, but somehow they fell into the hands of Ming Xiu and became a piece of equipment of Ming Xiu. Maybe these monks didn't live today, maybe 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, but after all, they were all living human monks. I just checked how many stored things in bones there are.
It seems that all the white bones and skeletons in the Zhangming world have a body bone.
With such a large number of white bones and skeletons, how many Terran friars should be poisoned by them? Why don't you wear these flesh and bones, so that the terrible explosion power of purple gold rune will blow you to pieces? Looking at the boundless surging bones, Yi Tian's eyes are full of anger.
This idea is so strong. What method should be used to make those white bones and skeletons wear flesh and bones? Yi Tian chews his lips and ponders. Next moment, he has an idea. Go by the side door.
He put the newly identified bones and objects together with more than a dozen bones and bodies on the ground into a separate Shumi commandment, and then gave a few words to the dead around him. After conveying his own meaning, Yi Tian comes to Xianyang stone and puts his arms around it. He entrusts Xianyang stone, which has made great contributions, to the side of Dian magic weapon. He wants to make sure that he has a very strong gravitational field centered on the magic weapon of Dian. When everything is ready, Yi Tian takes out the time and space tower again and goes in. Behind him are 6 dead men who once recognized the master of Yuaningjing's martial spirit puppet with him. They took their soul puppets from Shumi commandment and put them in the time and space tower. Then these dead men went out of the cave and went to collect the materials and bones of Mingxiu, especially the bones of the white bones, according to Yi Tian's instructions. Sitting on the putuan with his knees crossed, Yi Tian took out 2 heralds, which were used to communicate with his disciples in the great wilderness. Now, many of his disciples have stayed with the barbarian and Terran friars, and these heralds are just in use. Exterminating the tyrant and Duanjingxiu, it is said that when they are fighting against the monks of the underworld, they should collect the storage of bones and skeletons, especially their body bones in Sangming decrees.
It's of great use to be a teacher. Don't throw away the Ming stone. After Yi Tian inspired the messenger, he said a few words in a hurry. The messenger turned into a burning flame and soon became flying ash. With a long breath, Yi Tian continues to transform the martial spirit puppet. Outside the time and space tower, the situation changed dramatically because of a command from Yi Tian. 73 of the dead released their resistance to the white pants skeleton for a while, and began to collect Ming Xiu's bone storage objects. They specially sorted out the body and bones and stored them separately in the Xumi commandment. This situation immediately caused a chain reaction of the white bones and skeletons. It's strange that they also separated a large number of white bones and skeletons. They also searched the Sangming kingdom for the same family's bone storage utensils, and collected the flesh and bones. Through the vision of Lianqin Chongchong, Yi Tian frowned and pondered. There seems to be nothing special about this situation. It's the same with the Terran friars. Resources are equally important to the Terran friars and the meditation. The Terran friars also clean up the battlefield after the war. Even Yi Xiu started to collect resources when he was fighting with his opponent. But why didn't he collect bones before, but now he sent out a large number of white bones to collect them? Do they collect resources, or do they search for Sanming decrees, or do they also collect flesh and bones? Yi Tian didn't know, but he thought of a point. Did the white bones worry that their premature collection of stored bones would attract the attention of the Terran friars and compete with them for collection? In any case, at least the pressure of the barbarian and Terran friars alliance was greatly reduced, and a lot of white bones and skeletons were also sent out there to collect the stored bones. Even after a moment, all the underworld troops over there withdrew and joined in the collection of bone artifacts. Even all the complete bodies that could be seen were collected by them. On the side of the alliance, Nieba and Duanjingxiu received the news from Yi Tian, and conveyed Yi Tian's order to Najiak and the other 27 sect monks. Because of the order of the alliance leader, nearly 100,000 troops did not go after the Ming Xiu, but collected the Ming Xiu's stored bones on the spot. The most ridiculous thing is that the ancestors of the 8 sects saw that this situation happened in the Sangming world. Although they didn't know the use of collecting the stored bones and the things in them, they still ordered the remnant disciples who had already evaded the war and got to the edge of the Sangming world to join the ranks of collecting the stored bones. For a while, the battlefield, which used to be a fierce battle, has now become a sea chase, and they are looking for their own bone storage in the numerous bones. Only around Yi Tian, there are many white skeletons still launching fierce attacks. Their attack is not to attack Yi Tian, but to break through the shackles of the gravity field and take away Yi Tian's magic seal. Yi Tian's defense is very easy. When the defense area is further reduced, it will be very difficult for each step of Meisho to break through the gravity field, but they are still moving forward step by step. When they are too close to the magic seal, the 72 dead men will stop collecting the stored bones and kill all the bones that are too close together with Yi Tian's original spirit fire. Little by little, I don't know how much time passed. Yi Tian in the time and space tower finally completed the transformation of the last martial spirit puppet. After the experiment, he also gave the puppet a flying sword. At the next moment, the 6 dead men outside the time and space tower were called in, and 123 puppets of martial spirits, which had been branded by them, continued to be under their command. Time is limited. Yi Tian cannot continue to spend time to recognize the master of these martial spirit puppets. This time, Yi Tian went out of time and space. After putting the time and space tower away, his mood was very different from before. Because I have confidence. There are 323 yuan baby-level puppets around. That's the strength. How's the collection going? The first thing Yi Tian did was to ask about the task he had assigned before. Holy Son of Longmen, we have collected almost all the things we can collect nearby. There are a lot of them, but we can't find any bone storage utensils where we can go. One of the dead returned immediately. No matter what other people call Yi Tian, master, ally or grandmaster, these dead men always call Yi Tian the son of Longmen. Maybe they are used to it, or they remind Yi Tian that he is a person in the great wilderness spiritual realm. Don't forget the great wilderness spiritual realm. However, this move is very suitable. Every time he is called like this, Yi Naivete thinks of some things in Huang Lingyu, his elder brother Yanlai who was very good to him, and the king of Lanling who was more defensive. Well, continue to kill a piece of bone storage. Yi Tian nodded slightly, gestured, and the magic weapon Big Seal flew up in the air. Once again, he threw it at the army of Ming Xiu. There is no accident that no skeleton can escape the killing of the magic seal. After several times, Yi Tian moved the Xianyang stone, and the magic seal moved to place. There are countless corpses around, so it's easy to find the storage bone. In addition to the 73 dead men, Yi Tian is not idle. He takes the elixir to recover his mana and joins the team to search for the stored bones. He will not waste the liquid unless he is forced to do so. With a little less of this precious resource, the effect of the elixir that he refined to restore his cultivation is also good, but it takes longer to recover to its heyday. Yi Tian is not in a hurry to fight, so there is still time. In this area, some of the original storage bone vessels have been cleaned up by Mingxiu. What Yi Tian collected are all left by Baigyu Mingxia who just killed him. However, because of this, he had some unexpected gains. That is to say, there is not only one bone attached to the body, but also many, even dozens of them. That's good. Those white skeletons helped me to collect. Thinking about this, Yi Tianshenian sweeps through the whole Sangming world and finds some of the most hard-working repair methods for collecting bone objects. When Yi Tian collected all the bones and objects he had seen and was ready to move again, the white bones and skeletons around the periphery suddenly and quickly withdrew. Countless bones and skeletons, like the ebb of the sea, fly away to the distance. I've been fighting around for such a long time. Can I just leave? When Yi Tian saw this, he put away Shenyang stone and Di'in magic weapon, set foot on Dun Tian Suo, urged the original spirit fire, and chased him toward the retreat direction of Ming Xiu. This time, Yi Tian's Dun Tian Suo once again played a strong fighting force. He collided all the way, and countless corpses were built on the land of bones. Sangming is outside the boundary. The barbarians and the ancestors of the 27th sect took a long breath when they saw the scene in the Sangming kingdom. I didn't expect that this crisis was solved by Yi Tianhua. At the critical moment, Yi Tian walked out of the pagoda-shaped magic weapon cave and attracted a lot of debris from the Ghost Kingdom. Only in this way can he greatly reduce the pressure of his own warriors and Terran friars. It can be said that Yi Tian is a worthy hero. Looking at the barbarian warriors who had not suffered any damage in Sangming's boundary, the king of barbarians said with emotion. Yes, I didn't expect that this attack would end like this. In particular, Yi Tian's last stratagem is to stimulate the underworld by collecting the storage and bone wares of the underworld, transfer them all away, and compete with Yi Tian for the resources of the underworld. In fact, as a Terran monk, the resources of the underworld are useless. I have been in contact with the cultivation resources of the underworld, which are nothing but the underworld stone. Yi Xiaoyu is also very powerful. I don't know how to know the mind of the underworld. He used this unexpected method. Even in that case, I can't think of such a way. The old ancestor of Duan family said with flying eyebrows that he thought that the alliance between the Terran and the barbarian would be finished with the addition of the army of the underworld. Even if he was lucky that the whole army would not be destroyed, at least it would be badly damaged. He never thought that the battle would be ended in this way. The cold ancestor of the Iron Sword sect also nodded and praised, yes, it's a generation of talents to subdue people without fighting. Even in the spirit realm of Luo Tian, this person must be a powerful person. Many years ago, the family ancestor once contacted a monk in the spirit realm of Luo Tian. He learned that there was a leading power over there, a family named Xian, whose children were good at stealth. Yi Tian Mingxian has some guards who are very good at stealth, and his own stealth is also superb. Combined with these clues, can we infer that Yi Xiaoyu should be an important son of the Xian family, and Yi Tian is just his pseudonym? Yes, there seems to be some truth in Leng Daoyou's statement. That should be it. Otherwise, we're too smart to have this kind of invisibility. The two ancestors of Xiazongmen nodded in succession. The cold ancestor of the Iron Sword sect heard that someone agreed with him, and he was even more convinced of his guess. He continued, the disciples of Sangming Kingdom should not be in great danger after that.
With Yi Xiaoyu, they are strictly defensive. No matter how many skeletons there are in the Ghost Kingdom, they may not be able to break into the defense range of the magic seal.
By the time Sangming was closed, Manhuan's troops had arrived.
With our escort, they should be able to leave safely.
It should be like this.
Yi Xiaoyu has always been careful and will certainly consider it carefully. Hearing the words, the ancestor of the Duan family nodded slowly and said, however, the next moment, when he sensed the situation in the Sangming world, he whispered, "What's the matter? How could Yi Xiaoyu be so reckless as to take people to fight back against so many mysteries in the ghost world?
Yes, is it too reckless? Defense also has certain risks, how dare to counterattack?" When he said this, they found out that in the Sangming world, Yi Tian launched a counterattack against the underworld, just as the Duan family's ancestors said.
Although the two sides had not met each other in a short battle, it was obvious that Yi Tian took the initiative to ask for the trouble of Mingxiu, and some people began to complain. Well, it's a young man who is not mature at all. At this time, a stable word can win the world. Why can't he be stable?
Maybe Yi Xiaoyu is gone with the wind and thinks he is invincible, but he doesn't think about it.
No matter how powerful he is, it's just him.
Not everyone is like him.
He was surrounded by the skeletons and could rush out with flying weapons, but did other friars have flying weapons?
He can get out of danger, others can get out of danger? I praised him just now. It's reckless of me to take back that compliment.
I don't care about other people's lives. Especially the cold ancestor of the iron swords was very angry.
If he could enter the Sangming world, he would certainly reprimand Yi Tian.
As they can see, Yi Tian is no longer mature in Sangming. He really leads nearly 100,000 troops to find the trouble of the white bones. The direction they went to was the nearest skeleton army, only 400 or 500 miles away. These skeleton troops had just finished cleaning up the nearby battlefield and collecting the same clan's stored bones, ready to go to another place to collect them. The number of this army of white bones and skeletons is not large, about 70,000, but there are two other armies hundreds of miles away, each of which is larger than this one.
The number should be more than 100,000.
In the Sangming Kingdom, the white skeleton army at this time was divided into 4 branches, and the 4th branch was the farthest, more than 2,000 miles away, with a total of more than 150,000 people. Thus, the total number of the white skeleton army was still more than 400,000 after Yi Tian looked and killed it. Those ancestors outside the boundary of Sangming were not optimistic about Yi Tian's initiative, but this alliance of human and barbarian with nearly 100,000 people was all agitated and highly motivated. Only under the command of Yi Tian, those who have personally participated in the battle with the white skeleton army can realize this excitement, which contains the conviction and worship of Yi Tian. From the beginning of the war to now, no matter how fierce the attack of the white skeleton army is, it's all resolved by Yi Tian's hand. Even the friars of the 8 sects have been nearly annihilated, and they even have few casualties. At the front of the army, Yi Tian, who was standing on Dun Tianhua, had bright eyes and a cool expression on his face. It seemed that this time he was not going to lead the army, but to travel.
Keep up and collect their storage.
At a certain moment, Yi Tian suddenly gave a loud drink, which accelerated the speed of Dun Tianhua. Dun Tianhua turned into a white light, and soon came to the sky of those white skeletons.
Countless bone knives and guns are shot at Yi Tian from below in a flash. Yi Tian snorts coldly, and the magic weapon seal has been released.
40 or 50 acres of dark shadows were directly pressed down from the sky, and the huge seal covered Dun Tianhua and pressed down against the bone from below.
Boom! With a loud noise, the seal magic weapon was pressed down.
There was no accident.
A piece of Mingxiu died miserably under the seal magic weapon. Yi Tian does not hesitate to expend his mana.
He moves continuously, and the seal of magic weapon is smashed one after another. The formation of the white skeleton army is in chaos immediately. At this time, Dun Tianhua suddenly lowered his flying height, and then many figures flew down from Dun Tianhua and fell into the scattered white skeleton team.
It was the 323 puppets of martial spirit after transformation.
200 of them are controlled by Yi Tian, and the other 123 are controlled by 6 dead men, all of whom are taken by Yi Tian and Dun Tiansuo. Outside the boundary of Tsangming, Manwang and the ancestors of the 27 sects are concerned about the charge initiated by Yi Tian. It's the martial spirit puppets refined by Qingyun sect. Although they are as good as those in the early Yuan dynasty, Yi Tian has used these puppets several times before, although the effect is good. But it's a bit of a whim to defeat the Ming Xiu army with these puppets. The ancestor of a certain 27 sect shook his head and sighed when he saw the puppet flying to the ground. The ghost reinforcements over there have already come here. Although Yi Tian has killed some white bones and skeletons just now, it is a drop in the bucket. If these two armies join together, our coalition forces will face great pressure. The cold surnamed ancestor of Taijian Villa also said solemnly. No, you see those puppets with martial spirits. When the atmosphere became dull, the old ancestor of Duan family suddenly said. In fact, people's thoughts had already covered the whole Tsangming world. The war situation inside was clear at a glance, and even Yi Tian's means were clear. Therefore, they didn't care about the puppets who jumped from Dun Tiansuo. It's just some ghost puppets in the early Yuan dynasty. It's invincible to deal with the small number of Baigu Mingxiu. However, it's extremely difficult to win in the army of tens of thousands of Baigu skeletons. After all, we all know that Qingyun sect's ghost puppets are extremely expensive, and it won't take long. If you don't add the best Xianyu, you will stop cooking. Those people didn't pay much attention to the expression of the martial spirit puppet. Instead, they were watching Yi Tian use his magic weapon to kill Baigu Mingxiu. This dark gold magic weapon, which was called Mountain and River Seal by the ancestors of Duan family, really opened their eyes. This treasure is absolutely the best weapon for the Legion to fight. However, when Duan's ancestors called out the ghost puppet, their attention immediately focused on the ghost puppet. At the first sight, everyone was in a daze, and the expression on their faces was very wonderful. After landing, their bodies flashed, and they separated from each other. Then, the lights flashed, and each light was the shadow of the magic weapon in their hands. At the beginning of the light, the white bones and skeletons within 3 or 4 feet turned into countless scattered white bones and swept away. It was this strike that killed at least hundreds of skeletons. It's the same with every place where the light rises and falls. If the light passes, the nearby white bones and skeletons will be wiped out. If the number of white bones and skeletons killed in a certain place is less than 100, it can only be because there are not so many white bones and skeletons nearby. No, it's not the ghost puppet refined by Qingyun sect. The ghost puppet refined by Qingyun sect is absolutely not so terrible. This kind of ghost puppet has at least reached the power of the late Yuanying realm, and some of them are even close to the peak of Yuanying realm. Outside the boundary of Tsangming, the cold ancestor of Tianmen suddenly exclaimed. No, they are the puppets of Qingyun sect. When the disciples of Qingyun sect drove these martial spirit puppets to deal with Yi Tianji, I paid close attention to them and naturally knew them. After Yi Tian captured them, he used them many times. I can know what they look like when I close my eyes. Why are they not the puppets of Qingyun sect? The puppet was refined by Qingyun sect, but its power has been greatly improved. There must be another mystery. The ancestor of the Duan family said firmly. But these puppets are really more terrifying, and they can use magic weapons to attack. They all seem to be half-immortal soldiers' magic weapons. You know, Qingyun sect's martial spirit puppets can't use magic weapons. Is it Yi Tian? What did Yi Tian do? How can he surpass Qingyun sect in the way of refining utensils? I have observed his bone age, but he is only in his 20s. Even if he has been practicing since he was born, he will not eat and will not sleep, and he will spend all his time on practicing. It is lucky that he can reach this level. How can he have extra experience to study the way of refining utensils? The ancestor of a 27 sect lost his voice. Just between the words they talked about, the battle in the Tsangming world was over. The more than 300 puppets of martial spirits flew up in the air and disappeared when they arrived near Dun Tiansuo. But on the ground is left a messy white bone, covering a large area. Looking at Yi Tian again, it was driving Dun Tiansuo to fly away towards the more than 100,000 secret cultivation team that came here to support him. The battle just now ended so fast that the process of extermination was over before the ancestors and the man Wang outside the boundary of Sangming had a good look at it.
There are more than 300 soul puppets. Each soul puppet makes 3 or 4 moves to solve the battle. It's incredibly fast.
Outside the boundary of Sangming, De Shoumen, who had just been discussing fiercely, was quiet, his eyes were wide open, and he was stunned. Then he recovered, and someone exclaimed, "I think Tian has created a legend, an immortal legend that may be able to spread for thousands of years in the realm of time and spirit."
Ha ha. Tang Daoyu, just now you said that Tian is too young. Is he reckless? How can I feel that your voice hasn't completely disappeared and reverberated in the sky?
The ancestor of a small clan said excitedly when he saw such a situation.
And the other person beside is laughing and joking. Look, the reinforcements of the Ghost Kingdom have withdrawn. They are afraid. They are scared away by Tian.
The cold surnamed ancestor of the Iron Sword Gate said aloud at this time.
Yes, Yi Xiaoyu is a man.
He is the first monk of Longmen Realm and Time and Spirit Realm to hunt down 100,000 Ghost Territory soldiers by himself. A voice sounded from his side, but it was the ancestor of another small clan. At this time, Man Wan, who had not spoken, said in a coarse voice, "I'm afraid it's not just in Longmen Realm.
Among your human friars, which one of them can do this?" Everyone was silent. That's right. Man Wan was right. Almost all the outstanding disciples of Jindanjing and Taiman Lingyu entered Sangming Kingdom, but what? It's true that none of them can do that.
Even if Yi Tianmi killed the elites of Jindanjing, including Fan Tianjin of Zhengyangmen and the elites of Batazongmen, I don't know how many of them.
There are also some talents, rising stars and elites who are talked about by people.
They are in the brigade behind Yi Tian, and under Yi Tian's wings, they start to clean up the battlefield and collect the materials and bones of Ming Xiu.
How? There is no comparison. It's fighting again. It seems that Yi Tian doesn't want to let go of those meditation practitioners.
Between the words, Dun Tiansua had caught up with the white skeleton in front of him with the speed of half a step into the divine realm. There are more than 100,000 white bones and skeletons. On the road of supporting the same clan, they have not yet reached the battlefield, and the 700,000 people of the same clan have been killed. However, they still did not escape the pursuit of Yi Tian. A thick shadow fell out of thin air, and all the white bones and skeletons within 40 mu and 50 mu fell into the pit. Then, a roaring sound sounded again and again. Yi Tian did not directly release the soul puppet, but took the later era of hot weapons to attack. In the era of hot weapons in later generations, planes and cannons were used to bomb first, and when the bombardment was almost the same, charge was launched and close combat was conducted.
Yi Tian's big seal magic weapon is equivalent to the planes and cannons of later generations.
After a big smash, he smashed the skeleton team into a mess. At the same time, more than 300 military spirit puppets, like more than 300 killing gods, flew down from Dun Tiansuo to hunt down the defeated soldiers. Generally speaking, the high realm is absolute to the low realm friars, especially when crossing a big realm, there is no chance of turning over.
Of course, Yi Tian is an exception. There are also differences between the small realms of the underworld level of the white bone meditation.
Just like the monks, they can be divided into the early stage, the middle stage, the late stage and the peak stage. Although there are many white bones and skeletons in the late and peak realm of Hades, the proportion of the early and middle realm is larger.
However, Yi Tian's puppet is the existence of the late Yuan dynasty. There is no comparability between the two.
Even Yi Tian didn't use the original spirit fire, and the 323 puppets of martial spirits formed an absolute crushing force on the white bones and skeletons. Use the original spirit fire, because this kind of original spirit fire which integrates 4 kinds of flames is too terrible. Where it passes, the white skeleton turns into gray ashes, and the storage bone will naturally be damaged.
There is nothing in it that can't be taken. Massacre. It's definitely a massacre without suspense.
This time, Yi Tian's martial spirit puppet once again showed his terrifying fighting power, which changed the previous evaluation of those small clan ancestors on him.
The massacre is going on here.
In the Sangming world, the other 2 brigades of the Begaming army not only did not come to support them, but also quickly retreated. There was a sign that the two brigades would make peace.
Yi Tian didn't pay attention to the two white bone repair teams.
Instead, he stood on Dun Tiansuo and calmly supervised the battle. Now he was more concerned about the extent to which these martial spirit puppets consumed Xianyu. Soon, the battlefield here ended with the killing of the last white skeleton.
Yi Tian's mind moved, and several puppets of martial spirits soared up in the air, flew to Dun Tiansuo and stood still. Yuan Tian's eyes shine through.
Without opening the mechanism behind the martial spirit puppet, Yi Tian can see the consumption of the best fairy jade inside. One of the spare pieces of the best fairy jade is as crystal white as before, without any consumption. And another piece of original high-quality Xianyu, the loss of whining, is also very small, which is much less than before. Continue to call some martial spirit puppets. Yi Tian check again. In general, Yi Tian completely relieved.
Brother Yi Tian, here we are.
When Yi Tian put away the puppet, nearly 100,000 troops behind him had finished cleaning the battlefield and arrived here. Looking at a messy battlefield, Najiak burst into a big smile. Brother Yi Tian's killing speed is too fast.
We can't clean the battlefield as fast as we can.
Yi Tian said with a smile, it's just a small trial.
It's a great war.
It should be staged soon. All right, fellow Taoists, clean up the battlefield quickly and bring all the seized goods.
At Yi Tian's command, people immediately split up.
Most of them searched for the storage of bones nearby, while others secretly ordered Yi Tian to take out countless storage of bones. The other side was on the ground full of bones.
Take out all the bones of the body and put them on the ground. Sangming also took out the order and gave it to me for centralized custody.
Yi Tian took a look at the piles of bone storage and continued. Yi Tian's orders went on, and the army began to get busy. The battlefield will soon be cleaned up, but if you want to take out the things in the storage boneware, you need to identify the owner of the storage boneware first, and then you can access the items. This process is relatively longer, but it can't hold many people. On the ground full of white bones, there are more and more flesh and bones, and the scale is getting bigger and bigger.
It looks shocking.
Outside the boundary of Sangming, on the side of the barbarian and human friars, everyone was puzzled.
What is Yi Xiaoyu doing? Are there so many skeletons and bodies to worship?
The cold ancestor of the Iron Sword Gate asked, why don't you take advantage of the victory and continue to kill those guys in the Ghost Kingdom?
In fact, it's just a different name.
He didn't know much about the underworld cultivation as Yi Tian, who fought with the underworld many times.
I don't think so.
Although Yi Xiaoyu is young, his strategy is not what we and other old people can understand.
He must have something else in mind.
Now, I'm very confident in Yi Xiaoyu. I believe the answer will be revealed naturally.
We don't have to guess here.
The old ancestor of Duan family said with a smile.
The ancestor of the Iron Sword sect nodded silently. Taoist Duan is right, but I still wonder why the puppet of Qin Yun sect's martial spirit has become so terrible?
Just as these people were talking about it, on the other side of the boundary of Sangming, there was the camp of Badaozongmen. More than a dozen ancestors of the 8 sects are also paying attention to Yi Tian's actions in the Sangming world. However, the look on their faces is not that of the 27 sects, but everyone's face is very ugly.
During this trip to Sangming Kingdom, 8 sects suffered heavy losses.
Each sect has sent in 2,000 Jindan realm disciples, but after several fierce battles, there are only about 1,700 people on the edge of Sangming realm. It's the 8 sects that add up to 1,700 people, and there are not as many people in any sect. Especially in Zhangyang Palace, in addition to the loss of a large number of disciples in Jindan realm, the gifted disciple Fan Tianjin also fell in it. Even the Zhangyang Holy Fire, the treasure of Zhangyang Palace, was taken away by Yi Tian and openly melted into his original spirit fire. When this happened, naturally none of these ancestors could have a good face. Another sect that lost the most was Taiyimen.
In addition to the Jindan realm disciples who entered the Sangming realm, Taiyimen also lost dozens of Huashan realm disciples.
They were all the monks who were forbidden by Emperor Wuzheng, the ancestor of Qin Yun sect, and later died outside the boundary of Sangming for no reason.
This led to the conflagration of the two great monks, King Yunzong and Taiyimen.
As a result, the top forces of the two sects were both defeated. Jun Wuzheng, who was considered to be the culprit, was the most seriously injured and still lies in bed. Later, after two sects sat down to carefully sort out the course of things, Qingyun sect got the remains of Yi Tian's luxurious animal car, and finally solved the secret of Tai sect's forbidden attack. It turned out that it was because Yi Tian played a trick that the monks of Taimen died miserably. The golden light that Jun Wu was shooting into Tai monk's body is not magic power or metal Taoist art, but a kind of golden worm, which is called Old Dead Worm, a very hard name. This kind of insect can be regarded as a kind of spiritual insect. After entering the human body, it is controlled by the master's mind and can decide the life and death of the banned person. Usually, this insect is in the body of a monk, and it will only torture the banned monk, and there is no worry about his life. However, this insect also has a little-known characteristic, that is, it can secrete extremely powerful toxin when smelling the fragrance of a kind of fruit called golden fruit. Under poisoning, the toxin quickly invades into the lungs of the poisoned person and will kill him in a short time. It is really very powerful. In order to make Taimen's ancestors believe this, Jun Wuzheng, seriously injured, put this old dead insect into a monster's body and gave Taimen's ancestors a golden fruit to take away for experiment. As like as two peas, the old fruit of Qingyun was brought to the table. The smell of golden fruit caused the old worms in the monster, and the death was exactly the same as those of the other gods. In addition to the remains of the animal cart provided by Qingyun sect, the friars of Taimen also found the remains of the animal cart that Yi Tian was riding on. As expected, they found a faint smell of golden fruit on it. The answer is solved, and finally King Yanzong gives Taimen a huge amount of compensation. But the monks of Yuanyingjing who fell from Qingyun sect, Yu Wuzheng naturally knew that it was Yi Tian who did it, but it was Taimen. Therefore, King Yanzong did not mention it anymore. All this has something to do with Yi Tian. In addition, this time in the Songming world, almost all of the disciples of the eight sects were killed by Yi Tian. Although no one said it, the ancestors of the eight sects were ruthless. After the end of the Songming world, they must catch Yi Tian and take revenge. As for how many people have this idea is aimed at those treasures of Yi Tian, it is not known. What's Yi doing? At this time, sensing the situation on Yi Tian's side, Shen Tianfang, the founder of Zhengyang Palace, asks hatefully. What's Yi Tian doing? Who can guess? However, there must be a reason for him to do so. He is crafty and cruel. Don't let them take advantage of him. Shall we also check and see how things are going? The crutch in the old woman's hand of Qingyun sect went underground and said. Then according to Yi Tian's practice, don't imitate wrong, or don't fall into his trap again. He Changgang, the ancestor of Li Huozong, said. Just do it, just see what Yi Tian is going to do. The ancestor of Dikuan Gate immediately agreed with the Tao. Since the ancestors of each sect had spoken, the eight sect monks in the Songming world immediately started to act. In a big war in the world, the most serious loss was the ghost cultivation. Corpses and skeletons can be seen everywhere. Therefore, the disciples of the eight sects really collected a lot. Next, just at the edge of the Songming kingdom, they learned from Yi Tian and took out the bones one by one from the bone storage vessels, and then placed them on the ground full of white bones. Because no matter how many bones and objects they collected, how could they be more than the number obtained by more than 100,000 people on Yi Tian's side? They have all finished, but Yi Tian's camp continues to put them. There is no follow-up action on Yi Tian's side. The eight sects are waiting for the action on Yi Tian's side while observing the flesh and bones on the ground. I want to find some clues. I understand. Maybe Yi Tian, a son of a bitch, had some ancestors who were made into skeletons by the ghost world, so he put them out one by one to identify them. See Yi Tian see those flesh body attached bone very careful appearance, completely as a pair of staring expression, Shen Tianfang suddenly guess way. It's impossible. Shen Daoyu must have guessed wrong. You didn't look at Yi Tian's male body and female body, who killed 1,000 swords very carefully. Don't you know whether his ancestors were male or female, so you came to look for their remains? The old woman of Qingyun sect once again said with a crutch. Shen Tianfang was refuted by the old woman, and immediately felt that he had no face. He continued to argue, maybe Yi Tian's ancestors who were made into skeleton and body, including men and women, should be made into skeleton and body. The ancestors of the 8 sects are also the great figures who have been famous for a long time in the time and spirit realm.
At this time, they can't enter the Tsangming realm.
However, they can't help Tian, but they are full of their own advantages.
In the end, Shen Tianfang's words become extremely vicious.
These great friars of Yupu realm were waiting while they were guessing.
After nearly half an hour, Yi Tiankai had a follow-up action.
All over the ground, the flesh and bones are lined up, occupying dozens of miles. This kind of scene, as long as you look at it, you will feel extremely shocked, and these flesh and bones were originally living monks, but unfortunately died in the hands of the ghost world. Many of the people and barbarians present had a strong sense of self-esteem, and they hated the ghost world even more. Tian stood silently on the side of those bodies and bones, looked at them for a moment, and then said in a loud voice, "These elders and Taoist friends are all monks of our human race. Now that we can see their bodies today, we, as the younger generation or colleagues, can't just sit back and ignore them. I propose that today, we should bury these elders and colleagues with white bones on the ground. It is said that the dead are the greatest."
Please kowtow with Yi. With these words, Yi naively knelt down in front of those bones.
"Lord, be merciful."
There was a slight sigh in the crowd. This sound was heard by the friars next to him and repeated.
The alliance leader was merciful, and then he knelt down. "Lord, be merciful. Lord, be merciful." The shouts grew louder and louder, and then gathered into countless shouts, echoing in the Tsangming world. Then one by one, the monks knelt down, and one by one, the tall barbarian warriors knelt down. The scene was solemn and stirring.
Silence. Kneeling in front of Yi Tian, he gave a big drink again.
Then he clasped his hands and said in his heart, "Fellow disciples, you are made into flesh and bones.
They are all the hands of the underworld. This time we will take revenge for you. When you blow up your bones later, don't blame Yi."
After reading silently, Tian kowtows 3 heads to those flesh body bones, and then gets up. The Terran and barbarian allied forces behind also stood up after a moment of silence. Some of them had tears on their faces, some of them were in a deep mood and silent, and some of them were silently watching Tian's back and casting admiring eyes. "Dig 3 feet into the earth, bury the bones, bury the earth." Tian turns around in front of people's eyes and shouts in a solemn and low voice. Yes, everyone answered, and immediately ran away, looking for a body bone, and began to dig a hole on the ground full of white bones.
Sure enough, it's a burial. How could this non-blinking devil have such a good heart?
Outside the boundary of Tsangming, Shen Tianfang looked at the scene inside the boundary of Tsangming and muttered to himself in confusion.
A hypocrite like Yi Tian will not have a good heart, but is he buying people's hearts by doing so? The ancestor of Zenwuzong, a wrinkled old man with white beard, snorted coldly. Buying hearts?
Hearing this word, Shen Tianfang was stunned for a moment, and then said, "No matter whether it's buying people's hearts or not, no matter what he does, what's the purpose of doing it? But the bones of these fellow monks have already been placed here.
Naturally, we can't ignore them. Let's send them to their homeland with the morality of our monks." Hypocrisy.
When they heard him say this, they swore in their hearts.
They are all old monsters. Can they not know that Shen Tianfang is really buying people's hearts?
As soon as the matter of joining Tsangming Kingdom is reported, the people of the 8 sects are not as good as the devil Yi Tian. The corpse of the same sect is in front of us, but they ignore it and don't bury it.
Isn't it a criticism? Shen Tianfang's word is just to gain a good reputation. It's time to spread it.
The 8 sects were buried for their fellow disciples at Shen Tianfang's suggestion.
Even if no one publicizes it, Zhanyang Palace itself will also publicize it.
Those Jindanjing disciples were almost wiped out, and it's time for all the major sects to recruit talented disciples again. Which sect has a better reputation will naturally have more advantages. As for the alliance with the Ghost Kingdom, there will be another saying that the 8 sects will join hands to set up a bureau, leading the Ghost Kingdom to enter the Tsangming Kingdom, and they will be killed by the 8 sects, causing heavy casualties.
As for the emergence of different voices, let them have a dispute. It's a mixed story to be a good person, isn't it? The ancestors of the 8 great sects had already thought about how to deal with the aftermath before they did bad things.
People's mouths are open, and it depends on what they say.
In their minds, what really matters is interest.
The so-called no profit, no early rise, as Shen Tianfang said, also has his purpose. But since they have already said it, anyone who refutes it will leave a name for it, so the rest of the ancestors also agree with it.
The tone is set.
The disciples of the 8 sects in Sangming Kingdom immediately began to get busy. In order to be afraid of being calculated by Yi Tian, or any other mystery, the process of burying the body with bones is the same as Yi Tian.
Even the words are the same. Silence kowtow.
Dig 3 feet into the earth, bury the bones, bury the earth.
After all that, the monks of Batazongmen began to dig the pit. The depth standard was strictly in accordance with 3 feet.
Even the direction of the corpse's head was the same as that of Yi Tian. They are busy here, but there is a third force hundreds of miles away from Sangming.
That's from the underworld.
There are more than 40 high and high meditation practitioners here, all of them face the direction of Sangming world, and there are faint flames in the eye sockets of each white skeleton, as if they can see everything in Sangming world through the jumping flames. These tall white skeletons, that is, the Ming Zun of the underworld, are expressionless, just looking there quietly.
Perhaps, no matter what kind of mood, these skeletons can't make the corresponding expression.
However, in front of these tall white bones and skeletons, a very beautiful woman, facing the Sangming world, was full of fierce light, with willow eyebrows down, apricot eyes wide open and powdery face covered with frost.
Why? Who can tell me why things have come to this point? Hundreds of thousands of people fell into the Sangming kingdom, and almost all their reserved hands were used up. Not only did they not give much sacrifice to the Ming ancestor, but they even lost their own sacrifice. Also, don't always think about waiting for the heir. If you really can't, take the initiative. No matter what method you use and how much you spend, those sacrifices must be snatched back.
Besides, we must get the seal of mountains and rivers. Suddenly, the beautiful woman's voice said sternly. Yes, Queen of the Underworld. There was no explanation. More than 40 tall white skeletons agreed in a hoarse voice at the same time. Then he retreated in silence.
Yi Tian.
The beautiful woman does not look back, still looking at the direction of Sangming world, murmuring the name of Yi Tian. His teeth were full of broken jade, which made him cackle. In the world of Sangming, a lot of flesh and bones have been buried. Yi Tian takes a look at the graveyard without any raised head, and says to the people, order to go down, rest on the spot, and recover the mana as soon as possible.
Elder brother Yi Tian, there are less than 300,000 ghost regions over there. Shall we kill them? Just as Yi Tiangang finished, Najiak came over with a thick stick and asked in a gruff voice.
Yi Tian took a look at the army of Ming Xiu, who had retreated to the edge of Sangming Kingdom, and was only one boundary away from those tall by Gu Ming Xiu. He shook his head and said, that's the edge of Sangming Kingdom.
The terrain is not conducive to attack. I'm good to say that we can get away even in case of accidents, but the army is different.
Once the Ming Xiu army is surrounded, a large number of Ming Xiu troops can flow in from the edge of Sangming boundary at any time, forming a situation of encirclement. Once the two sides fight together, we can't give full play to our advantages.
At that time, the casualties will be immeasurable. Brother Yi Tian is considerate, then he will recover. Besides, I just haven't had a good time yet.
Naji said with a simple and honest smile.
Don't worry, Naji, you'll fight the battle.
Yi Tian pats Naji on the shoulder and then turns to leave.
This time, he once again entered the time and space tower to practice.
He needs to use all the time to get rid of the restrictions on his stealth as soon as possible, even one day in advance, which is an important card for him.
In the Tower of Time and Space, Yi Tiandu spent several days in peace.
This time is calculated according to the time dimension in time and space, and the flow velocity is 3 times that of the outside.
Over the past few days, Yi Tian has been devoting himself to cultivation.
It's hard for him to spend a lot of time on cultivation. At ordinary times, he is more used to making effective use of fragmented time.
The stronger you are, the more eager you are to be strong.
Especially as a great friar in Yupu, Yi Tian always feels that he is still too weak. Most of the time, they are living in the crevice, doing everything like taking chestnut in the fire, step-by-step crisis.
In the past few days, the world of Tsangming is relatively calm, and there are no changes in the Ming clan and the 8 sections. But the more so, Yi Tian feels the undercurrent surging. Under the appearance of calm, there must be a bigger storm, just like the calm before the storm. Not only people outside, but also Yi Tian in the time and space tower feel that with the passage of time, the world seems to become more and more depressed. In the world of Tsangming, the eruption of Tsangming order is still going on, but the frequency seems to be slower and the interval is longer. The ghost cultivation is still so keen to obtain Tsangming order. Yi Tian didn't know how long it would take for Tsangming Kingdom to really open, and what secret was hidden in Tsangming Kingdom. Only with the opening of Tsangming world can we find the final answer. A few days passed in a hurry. At a certain moment, Yi Tian slowly opened his eyes and stood up. God Luo, ear, you are good at living and practicing. It seems that there is another big battle to be fought. After several days of cultivation, Yi Tian not only completely recovered to the peak state, but also felt that the mana in the Dantian had improved a lot. Full of spirit, Yi Tian says something to Qin Luoshan in the air, and walks out of the time and space tower under their eyes. Outside the time and space tower, there are 100 dead men, 20 retinues, nearly 100 Kunlun practitioners, and 11 disciples of Yi Tian who are meditating with their knees crossed. These 11 disciples were all accepted in the great wilderness spiritual realm. Xian and Biawan's accomplishments were too low, so Yi Tian would not allow them to come out of them. Because long-term stealth consumes too much mana, these people outside the spacetime tower have already returned to their normal state. At this time, they see Yi Tian come out and stand up one after another. Master. The son of Longmen. Master. Different address, almost at the same time export, eyes focused on Yi Tian. Well, your accomplishments have been improved, you can survive in the cruel war, you can have enough ability to deal with the crisis you may face in the future, and you can grow up only after you have experienced it. I have only one goal. I hope you will go further on the road of practice. Yi Tian put away the time and space tower, glanced at everyone's face one by one, and then said. All of them didn't speak, but followed Yi Tian's figure and followed him silently. No one noticed that 6 of the dead fell behind as they walked, and then disappeared silently. More than 10 miles away, the armies of the Barbarian and Terran Friars Alliance had been assembled according to different camps, quietly waiting for Yi Tian's arrival. Yi Tian looked at the boundless army, then flew into the air, facing the soldiers from different camps, and said in a high voice, "Some wars have no reason. If you don't want to be killed, you have to kill the hell practitioners. If you don't want to be the flesh and bones buried by us before, you can only fight for a chance of survival with the heart of death." This time, the meditation is fierce, which is obviously different from before. Everyone must obey the command completely, unconditionally, or even ask why, just obey. Do you understand? Understand, obey the leader's command. Understand, obey the leader's command. The crowd immediately burst out a burst of shouts, the voice of nearly 100,000 troops, magnificent, powerful, the shouts echoed in the sky for a long time. After simple pre-war mobilization, Yi Tian stepped on Dun Tiansua and turned back to look into the distance. There are countless dark amens moving slowly there. Some of these dark amens are the remnants of the original Tsangming world, while the vast majority are the reinforcements sent in again by the underworld. The total number is at least 500,000, which is 5 times the strength here. It is vast and boundless. It gives people a great impact visually and brings a heavy sense of oppression psychologically. In terms of tactics, it seems that those changes have changed the way they play. They are no longer group-intensive charges, but spread out in a spread formation. They are just like Tiannu's scattered flowers. There are Mingxiu figures in all directions, and they are likely to spread all over the whole Tsangming world. Yi Tian can easily see their intention. It seems that they are trying to avoid the mass destruction caused by their magic weapon seal. It's easy to understand. However, such a formation does not have much damage to the relatively concentrated barbarians and the Cultivation Alliance. If they want to achieve the results and kill the barbarians and the Friars Alliance, they will have to gather together on a large scale in the end. Otherwise, it will become a tactics of adding fuel, one by one to send the head, and eventually be defeated by each one. Yi Tian doesn't worry about this kind of tactics.
Even if he doesn't use the big seal magic weapon, he has many means to kill the underworld on a large scale, but the speed is slower. Another thing that surprised Tian was that this attack was not only about the white bones, but also about a certain number of gold skeletons. The gold skeleton is bigger than the white skeleton. The whole skeleton is gold, even the bone in the hand is gold. On the way, I can't see what's special about these golden skeletons, but Tian knows that these golden skeletons must be the mace of the underworld.
There were only about 3,000 people in Jinggumingshu.
They were all gathered together, and they looked very conspicuous among a large number of white skeletons.
No matter how powerful it is, it's better than the puppet with martial spirit in the late Yuan dynasty?
Although he felt a little surprised, Tian didn't think these golden skeletons were invincible. However, what worries Tian most is that it's not the bones scattered in the Tsungming world, nor the gold skeletons that look very special, but the great army of the underworld, which exudes a strong black atmosphere as they move on. It looks like a jet, flying with thick black lines behind it. In the vast Tsungming world, a little bit of black air is nothing, even if more black air is swallowed by the space, it is insignificant. But Baigu Mingxiu didn't know what method he used. It was as if his dark qi was endless. All the way, he was always full of dark qi. Where he passed, the dark qi gradually became strong. In this case, it is definitely not the dark qi aroused by stimulating the dark stone, but Tian confirms that the dark qi is the dark qi.
Is it the ghost qi brought from the ghost world by storing things in bones?
Tian began to observe those practices carefully. Sure enough, soon after, he finally saw some clues.
The Ming Qi from those self-cultivation bodies does not come from one part in a unified way.
Some of them are from the body, and they should be their own bone storage tools. These should be the monks who later entered the Tsungming world. And some of them are from the bones in their hands.
They are originally in the Tsungming world. It seems that the bones in their hands should be new.
At present, although they don't release a lot of dark qi, as time goes on, as long as time is enough, it will be like a ghost land with dark fog everywhere. The sea is the world of dragon, the sky is the hometown of crane, mice like soil, fish like water, but in the air, it is the world of cultivation. Once it is heavy enough, not only the sight of the friars is blocked and their mind is limited, but also they need to shut their breath and restrict their actions, which will greatly reduce their combat effectiveness. On the contrary, in the dark fog, the combat effectiveness of meditation can be brought into play to a greater extent. The situation is absolutely disadvantageous to the barbarian and Terran allied forces. However, Tian can also see that the underworld people in the ghost world must have paid a great price for this. Otherwise, even if the bones and skeletons suffered heavy losses several times before, they didn't release the spirit of the underworld. Perhaps if they are released, they will not be able to take it back. The area of thousands of miles is absolutely not a small loss to the Ghost Kingdom.
They are likely to affect many practices of meditation. Perhaps since the First World War, Sangming Kingdom has become a new nest of the underworld as if it did not return to the sea.
In a short time, Tian thought a lot in his eyes. At a certain moment, he turned his eyes to the 100,000 troops behind him and said in a loud voice, "Fellow citizens, there are the bones of the same clan that we have just buried here.
We can't let those ghosts go away again. Your task is to keep these bones. If the underworld attacks, fight to the end. Tian, go to meet the underworld now."
With that, Tian suddenly turned around, turned into a white light, and shot away toward the distance, leaving behind nearly 100,000 troops in the same place, silently watching his back. Soon after, seeing Tian Dun's figure, the white skeleton in his direction immediately scattered around, and there was no sign of confrontation with Tian. While the white bones and skeletons in other places are still releasing the heavy fog, while they are marching towards the direction of the Terran and barbarian allied forces. The speed is not fast. It seems that they are waiting for the fog to gradually thicken. "Ghost puppet, kill the ghost world!" Seeing this, Tian yelled, and immediately many figures of martial spirit puppets flew down from Dun Tiansuo. They scattered, searched for targets and killed the skeleton. As for those golden skeletons, Tian didn't aim at them for the time being. He wanted to see what's special about those golden skeletons, so as to take measures. In the late Yuan dynasty, all the 323 puppets of martial spirits went to battle. Where they went, they were all conquered. The 6 dead men who controlled part of the puppets were naturally taken to Dun Tiansua by Tian, but no one saw them. The martial spirit puppets they control are all those who follow Tian. As long as there is any action, Tian will tell the 6 dead men at the first time, because in terms of action, all the martial spirit puppets are very unified. The next moment, Tian's original spirit fire comes out, and the fire phoenix turns into a size of 10 feet, carrying a terrible high temperature that seems to melt everything, flashing a terrible firelight, to meet the white bone repair in front. More than 10,000 ants hummed and vibrated their wings, flew out, and soon disappeared in Tian's sight. Although more than 500,000 ghost towns are scattered and far less dense than the previous wars, they are still everywhere before they are completely scattered. However, this relatively sparse situation is not conducive to Tian's use of the magic weapon. He consumes too much mana, but his damage to Ming Xiu is greatly reduced, which is not worth the loss. Tian has many methods. Even if he uses other methods, he can still cause the same degree of damage to the white bone meditation without spending too much mana. Therefore, Tian will not release his seal magic weapon in such a situation. Dun Tiansua's speed is like a flash of lightning. With the defense shield closed, the fierce sword appears in Tian's hand. Click. 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 Where Dun Tiansua passed, the sound was sent out intensively. Besides Dun Tiansua's collision, Tian's fierce sword successively killed those white bones and skeletons. After each skeleton was killed, the originally surging Ming Qi suddenly stopped, and no longer erupted. The place where Dun Tiansua passed was like a fire extinguisher, which destroyed a lot of Ming Xiu who erupted Ming Qi. And Dun Tiansua, like a god of death, is mercilessly harvesting the life of the skeleton. Dun Tiansua, not only Tian shot, the 6 invisible dead also shot at the same time. With the terrifying speed of Dun Tiansua, Tian didn't even use the bonus of Ziyun Dragon Sword Spirit to help him. He just used his own mana, and with the power of Fierce Flying Sword, he was invincible all the way. After his cultivation in time and space, the mana consumed by the soul of Xianlong Sword has been restored to the original state and returned to the peak state. But it's a waste to use Xianlong's sword soul against this level of white bones and skeletons. To use it is to let him control the fierce sword to kill the enemy, but now is not the time to use it. Although Bai Guomingxiu is relatively scattered, there are always some bones and skeletons that are relatively dense. Tian drives Dun Tiansuo to collide with the place where Bai Guomingxiu is concentrated. In addition to the attack of the 6 invisible dead men on Dun Tiansua, where Dun Tiansua flew, he became the nightmare of countless Baigu Mingxiu, and ended the eruption of dark qi one after another. However, there are too many Baigu Mingxiu. Tian's hands are limited after all, and the concentration of Mingqi and Songming is slowly rising. At a certain moment, Tian felt that the density of the dark air had affected the visibility, and even his mind had been affected to a certain extent. However, the golden skeletons he always paid attention to didn't mean to move. He just stayed in the air and watched those white skeletons killed by Tian's various means without any emotion. Massacre. This time, it is still a one-sided massacre. Tian is on Dun Tiansua. The new wind blows his long hair. His eyes are cold and he is killing Baigu Mingxiu coldly. Outside Songming, everyone was watching what happened on the battlefield. The position of Man Wang and the great friars of the human race, these great friars of Yupujing also have the same dignified look to reflect the situation on the battlefield. They haven't spoken for a long time. But everyone's face became more and more dignified. There are too few friars like Tian. As long as there are 3, this battle will be absolutely successful. At one moment, the cold ancestor of the Iron Sword Gate suddenly sighed. On the battlefield, the Terran friars and the barbarian allied forces are always calm. It seems that the meditation is just despairing to send out the fog. It seems that they are ready to sacrifice some ghost regions for meditation. As for which part to sacrifice, it's up to heaven. They didn't rush to attack the allied forces of the Terrans and barbarians, but whether the ancestor of Tijianmen or the other great friars of Yupu, they all knew that this attack would come sooner or later. And once it comes, it will break the sky and decide life and death. At present, Tian is the only one in the Songming area who is trying to stop the eruption of Ming Qi.
The 100,000 allied forces are helpless to wait and see. They may be able to go out and kill those ghost areas, but if they are concentrated and all of them rush in a certain direction, the effect may be extremely limited. Once they are dispersed, it is likely to be a scuffle, and the casualties will be immeasurable. The allied forces of the Terrans and barbarians are not afraid of death or injury, but they don't need meaningless death or injury. Wouldn't it be better not to die? The reason why the underworld have not gathered together to form a large-scale charge is that they are afraid of Yi Tian's seal magic weapon. They dare not. However, once the underworld army and the allied forces fight together, the underworld will no longer have to fear the fall of Yi Tian's seal magic weapon. If there were 2 more monks like Yi Tian, the situation would be different. Over there are more than 3,000 of the golden ghost cultivation, which are unusual at first sight. Plus those in Sungming world, they are probably the miscellaneous maces of ghost cultivation. The old ancestor of Duan family pointed to the distance. Behind the many Ming Zuns, rows of golden skeletons were densely arranged. It seems that it is possible to continue to enter the Sungming world at any time. Man Wan, why don't you send reinforcements in? Around the king, Taesiong, who had come back from the wilderness again, suggested that this time he brought back 100,000 reinforcements. However, Man Wang waved his hand. Don't worry. Let's see the situation. Isn't there a fight yet? These mists have great restrictions on the human friars and the barbarians, too. It's too early to enter. Before we start, we reduce our strength. If a man is not careful, he will not only be unable to save the people inside, but also catch up with more people. As a king of barbarians, he must weigh the pros and cons and be responsible for the people. The ancestors of the other 27 sects looked at each other at this time. They had already sent a message to their disciples. The disciples of Yu Huashenjing had brought some of their Jindanjing disciples, but after all, they were small sections. The number of disciples was small, and the number of Jindanjing disciples must be limited. If it's okay to say in ordinary times, in this Sangming world, hundreds of thousands of people put in the face of hundreds of thousands of meditation, it will only be a water drift without sound. On the contrary, the barbarians are the most powerful. If they don't send people in, they don't have to. The people they bring can't change the war situation. If the people inside can win, even if they don't go in, they will win. If the people inside are defeated, even if they go in, they will not change the result of defeat. Man Wang is waiting, so are they. Everyone knows, not waiting for the change of occupation, but waiting for Yi Tian to create a miracle again. If Yi Tian doesn't work, it won't help to send another 200,000 people. Yi Tian, don't let us down. Although everyone knows that it is not appropriate to put such a burden on Yi Tian, who is only the cultivation of Longmen realm, there is no better way. The barbarians are too far away from here to bring more people. In the boundary of Sangming, the density of dark fog is more and more heavy. In the face of the killing of more than 300 puppets, all of them adopted the strategy of avoiding war. Wherever they went, they would avoid it. Even if the puppets are lost in crowded places, they will disperse quickly. This is true not only for the puppets but also for Yi Tian's original spirit fire. Thousands of miles around Sangming world, more than 500,000 ghosts are scattered in it. Even if they are waiting to be killed, they will not resist. It is not possible to do so in a short time. What's more, they are running all the time. Ka! Ka! Where Dun Tiansua passed, the white light kept flashing, and from time to time came the clear sound of flying sword killing the skeleton. Yi Tian is not afraid to expend mana. Dun Tiansua consumes the best fairy jade. However, he has a lot of best fairy jade, so he will not worry about his power. As long as the Terran and barbarian allied forces have not been attacked, he can be confident and bold to pursue and kill white bones and skeletons, kill one by one, and reduce one enemy for the coming war. And this war is inevitable. He believes that when the concentration of Ming Qi and Sangming reaches a certain level, and the purpose of using Ming Qi to weaken the strength of the Terrans and barbarians is achieved, this war will surely break out suddenly. At a certain moment, Yi Tian said a few words to the 6 invisible dead men around him.
After counting the breath, the speed of 323 martial spirit puppets who had been in different positions in the Tsungming world gradually slowed down, and soon gave up the pursuit of Baigumingxiu, and returned to the position where Yi Tian was. On the surface, it seems that Yi Tian sensed the return of the puppets and then stopped to wait. After a while, the slower and slower puppets of martial spirit came back to Yi Tian one after another, waiting in a line for Yi Tian to replace the best fairy jade. At this time, Yi Tian's Yuantian eye shines through and sees two pieces of the best fairy jade in the body of the martial spirit puppet. One of them is still full of energy and does not consume half a cent, while the other one only consumes less than 10%. But without any hesitation, he opened the mechanism behind a puppet, put his hand in and replaced Xianyu.
And then the next one. The same is true.
The best immortal jade power consumed by these martial spirit puppets is about the same. It seems that Yi Tian has really consumed the power of the best immortal jade. Every time he changes a puppet, the puppet flies away again and goes on killing the skeleton everywhere. Outside the boundary of Tsungming, the place where the King of Man and the ancestors of the 20 small clans are located. Seeing that Yi Tian in Tsungming world replaced the martial spirit puppet with the best fairy jade, the faces of those people who had already looked very dignified were even more ugly. They exchanged eyes with each other, but they didn't speak. It was not until Yi Tian had replaced the 4 or 5 immortal jades of the martial spirit puppets that the old ancestor of the Duan family said in a heavy voice, "I was surprised before. I didn't understand that because of Yi Xiaoyou's age, he was able to win heaven and earth." Unconsciously, he transformed the martial spirit puppet of Qingyun's sect into such a terrible power. Now, it turns out that the consumption of the best fairy jade has been increased, and the puppet's strength has been improved. Although this kind of ability is amazing, it's necessary to change the best fairy jade for the martial spirit puppet so frequently. If the melee starts, the ghost world will not give him the chance to change it smoothly. Just now, those martial spirit puppets were fighting for a while, until Yi Tian replaced the best fairy jade. It's really not as long as the martial spirit puppets could fight before the transformation. A few days ago, Yi Tian used the ghost puppet to kill the 2 armies of the underworld. Although the result was shocking, it actually took a very short time, not even as long as today. In such a short period of time, it is impossible to see the maximum time that a piece of jade can support the fighting of the soul puppet. In Duan's opinion, it must have been due to the lack of time. The martial spirit puppet has not yet revealed this weakness. However, he has always been very interested in this question and now he has finally got the answer. Today, however, it's totally different. The ghost cultivation is all scattered, and the martial spirit puppets have lost the chance to kill them in a centralized way. They need to keep chasing them. In this way, the power of the best fairy jade is consumed, but the result is not as big as they thought. Once there is a real war, it will definitely suffer. Naturally, other people have thought of what Duan's ancestors said. Those ancestors who are not optimistic about the war are even more worried. In the line of sight, the naked eye can see that the dark qi in the Tsungming world seems to be more rich. There's no way to do this. Think about it, it can not only improve the speed, but also enhance the strength, enhance the realm, without increasing the consumption of the best fairy jade. Isn't this kind of thing too whimsical? This kind of thing doesn't exist at all. I'm afraid the Immortal can do it well after that, or the Immortal can't do anything about it. Looking at the more and more heavy Ming Qi, the cold surnamed ancestor of the Iron Sword Gate sighed and said that his hope for his disciples in the Tsungming world to get out of the Tsungming world alive was reduced a little. Lang Daoyu, it's no use sighing. Even if it's like this, it's good to be able to replace Xianyu all the time. But who knows how much elixir Jiji Xiaoyu can consume? Once the best fairy jade is used up, those martial spirit puppets will become waste. I'd better think of a way to send some of the best fairy jade in. The old ancestor of Duan family shook his head helplessly and said, "The best fairy jade is nothing. I have some on my body, but how can I get it in? Now Tsungming is full of ghost cultivation. If you send a few people in alone, Yi Tian will be killed if you can't see him. Even if hundreds of people go in to escort you, it won't help. If there were more people, maybe there would be some hope. But as you can see, the reformed martial spirit puppets consume immortal jade too quickly. Even if they are sent, they may not be replaced in time. He also sent the person who sent Xianyu to the fire pit for nothing. Here, only Man Wang had the most people. When he heard the two people talking about it, he said something like this, which blocked the way for his people to send Xianyu. The old ancestor of Duan family and the old ancestor of Tianman's surname Lang was silent when he heard that the prince of Man Wang was in Songming kingdom. If there was a chance, Man Wang would try his best to rescue him. Naturally, he didn't think much of Yi Tian's martial spirit puppet. But what Man Wang said is also true. Unless Yi Tian controls the flying magic weapon, their best Xianyu can't be sent in. Moreover, inside and outside Sangming's world, even the messenger could not be sent in. If he wanted to deliver the message, he had to go to the edge for an interview. No matter how difficult it is, I will find a way to send the best fairy jade in. After a little pondering, Duan's ancestors continued to insist. While they were talking, the old woman of Qingyun's sect was watching with a sneer that Yi Tian was replacing the best fairy jade for the martial spirit puppet. A moment later, he looked at the rest of the great friars in Yupu, stopped his crutches, and said in a cold voice, which Taoist friend said just now that I'm not as good as Yi Tian in refining utensils. Are you the puppets of martial spirit that Qingyun's sect could not make in the later period of Yuanying realm? It is common sense that the higher the situation, the stronger the strength, and the more natural consumption of the best immortal jade power. Do you really think that Yi Tian has the ability to transform the martial spirit puppet of our Qingyun sect into such a terror? Now you know, he's just smart. If you want to be quick, you can't reach it. Once the Ghost Kingdom knows the effective attack time of this kind of puppet, it's time for Yi Tian to come. When the old woman said this, it was true that someone opened his mind to observe the location of the dead gods in the ghost world. She saw that the beautiful lady behind the dead was pointing to the location of Yi Tian with those tall white bones and skeletons, and was talking about something. It seems that the Ghost Kingdom has also noticed this. This kind of situation not only did not make them feel happy, on the contrary, their faces became a little ugly and full of worries. A moment later, Shen Tianfang of Zhengyang Palace moved. He left here and came to the edge of Songming Kingdom. He gathered together the remaining 300 disciples of Zhengyang Palace and whispered a few words before he came back. Seeing what Shen Tianfang had done, He Changang, the ancestor of Lihuozong, quickly left. He also went to the edge of Songming Kingdom and summoned the disciples of Lihuozong to give orders. After that, the ancestors of the other 6 sects were also unwilling to fall behind. They all called their disciples and told them what they wanted to do. Although they didn't tell each other clearly, they all knew that all the sects were thinking about Yi Tian's magic weapons. Mingzhi can't beat Yi Tian, but now that they know the shortcomings of the reformed martial spirit puppets, they have to use them. Maybe in the future, when the war starts, we can take advantage of the chaos to get a shutter out of the fire. In the world of Songming, Yi Tian continuously replaced the best fairy jade for the martial spirit puppets. Because there were too many, it took a lot of time for the 6 dead men to replace them together. Of course, there must be Yi Tian here who deliberately delays his time, giving people this illusion. As he replaced Xianyu, his mind covered the Songming world and the outside world, making it clear where the great monks were. Unconsciously, there was a smile in his eyes. After the replacement of the best fairy jades puppets, go after Baigu Mingxiu. Yi Tian also reinforces Dun Tiansuo to set foot on the journey again, and the endurance of ghost cultivation is beyond his imagination. During this period of time, there were a lot of ghost repair who were caught up with and killed, but the white bones and skeletons were always passively escaping, and there was no sign of gathering together to attack Yi Tian or the allied forces of the two nationalities. They just unremittingly released the rolling Ming Qi to the Songming world, as if their Ming Qi is endless. At this time, the dark fog in the Songming area has become a little thick, and the visibility is getting worse. If it goes on like this, Yi Tian knows that it is only a matter of time before the Songming area becomes a scene full of dark air. In the process of constantly releasing the spirit of the underworld and pursuing the cultivation of the underworld, time passes by bit. After a period of time, Yi Tian once again made a mental move, summoning the spirit puppet to return. The time of pursuing and killing is almost the same as that of the last time when the ghost puppet was replaced. In order to play a real game without helping, he can only avoid the trouble and repeat the last game again. However, when the 323 puppets began to return to Yi Tian's place, Yi Tian was surprised to find that Mingxiu and Sangming Kingdom had finally taken action at this moment. Not only the white bones but also the golden ones. They are not only running towards Yi Tian, but also towards those martial spirit puppets. As if he had received a unified order, the cultivation of the various regions of Sangming Kingdom began to move. Bai Guomingxiu, who was just chased by the puppet of the martial spirit, came back to pursue and kill the puppet of the martial spirit. However, because these Bai Guomingxiu were very scattered before, these pursuers seemed to be scattered and out of scale. But the pursuit was so decisive, fast and decisive. In addition to the white bones and skeletons, there are also some gold bones and skeletons. It seems that the opponent is bound to win. It's finally on the hook. Yi Tian's eyes flashed fiercely. He didn't mean to fight with those golden puppets. Instead, he quickly urged Dun Tianxua to take over those martial spirit puppets. At the same time, he called back the original spirit fire to stop those who pursued and killed the ghost puppets. A big war has officially begun. Kaka kaka. Dun Tianxua dashed away from the gathered Baigu Mingxiu, chopped up a piece of Baigu with a fierce sword in his hand, and then made a gesture to put the ghost puppet into Shumi commandment. Yi Tian naturally won't let other people be exposed now because he has exhausted his power. Good steel used in the blade, Yi Tian is also looking for the best time to rebound. The performance of the martial spirit puppet is just right. The speed of Feiduan is getting slower and slower, and the strength is constantly decreasing. However, he can always break through the siege of the white skeleton and come to Yi Tian's side, and Yi Tian puts it away one by one. The resistance of the original spirit fire also helped some martial spirit puppets to break through the interception of Mingxiu. More and more ghost puppets are collected by Yi Tian and the 6 dead men. At the same time, by taking this opportunity, Yi Tian also killed many of them by virtue of Dun Tianxua and 6 dead men. Whoosh! At this time, Dun Tianxua flew by and ran into a golden skeleton. The skeleton's body flashed and dodged to the side. Dun Tianxua rushed past where he had just been. What a speed! Yi Tian murmured a low voice. If changed to do white bone dark repair, depend on the speed just now, affirmation already bumped into several pieces. Although the golden skeleton still did not dare to touch Dun Tianxua, but with speed alone, Yi Tian no longer underestimated these golden skeletons. What's more, there are more than 3,000 golden skeletons in Sangming Kingdom, and there are also more than 3,000 outside Sangming Kingdom. Yi Tian, together with the 6 dead men, put away the puppets all the way. Sometimes, Yi Tian even sent out a fierce sword to meet the puppets intercepted by Beilan. At this critical moment, he will never allow a flaw to appear. On the face of it, Yi Tiandangzi took away his ghost puppet and was almost killed by Baigu Mingxiu on the way back. If those Bai Guomingxiu can stop the ghost puppets, maybe as long as they delay for a long time, they will become the bag of Bai Guomingxiu because their power is exhausted. At least, in other people's eyes. Yi Tian's acting is also very realistic. Even the last returning martial spirit puppet suddenly fell to the ground and became a dead object when he was about to reach Yi Tian's position. If Yi Tian hadn't arrived in time, he would have been lost. Who? Yi Tian breathes out a long breath and drives Dun Tianxua to break through. In all directions, except for Mingxiu, who pursued and killed the ghost puppets, all the others came to him. He was surrounded by 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, and it seemed that he would never be given the chance to replace the best fairy jade for the martial spirit puppet. On the contrary, the allied forces of the 100,000 people and barbarians were ignored. The shield of Dun Tianxua suddenly opens, and Yi Tian drives Dun Tianxua straight ahead. Along the way, the skeletons were smashed everywhere, with countless deaths and injuries. However, the ghost repair was still brave and fearless, trying to kill them. However, when Yi Tian's Dun Tianxua was just 4 or 5 miles away, he suddenly found that among the countless white skeletons in front of him, some gold skeletons were sandwiched between them. A golden net, layer upon layer, can have as many as 7 or 8 layers, blocking in front. The 2 ends of the golden net are held in the hands of many white bones. It seems that Yi Tianwang is like a net fish. Dun Tianxua suddenly turns his head and turns a square to crash away. Yi Tian doesn't know the strength of the golden net, but it's not so easy to be intercepted by Jingu Mingxiu. Although he may not be afraid of the golden net, he doesn't want to take unnecessary risks.
One by one, Bai Mingxiu was hit and flew, and quickly opened a path. However, after rushing out of the distance of 2 or 3 li, there were 7 or 8 layers of gold nets in front of him, which were also controlled by the golden skeleton. Relying on the big net? When Tian opened his mind, he suddenly found that while these big nets appeared in front of him, there were big nets in the other 2 directions, even above and below Dun Tiansuo, and they were as many as 7 or 8 layers. Similar to his Xiaomission sword array is a hexahedral cage formed by flying swords, while Mingxiu here is a hexahedral cage formed by gold net. Fire in this case, Tian gave a loud shout, and immediately the original spirit fire in the dark cultivation team flew to the front of the most peripheral gold net with the terrible Gao 1. With a whoosh, the flame zoomed in and burned the golden net. This kind of golden net is made of unknown materials. It took 4 or 5 breaths to burn down a layer with the terrible temperature of the original spirit fire. Sure enough, Tian whispered that if it was a common material, his original spirit fire would be melted in a flash, and it would never take half a breath. Before, he didn't know what preparations the underworld had made, but now he finally saw it. It seems very troublesome. In particular, in order to catch himself, he not only surrounded himself with a big net, but also had a lot of meditation in it, regardless of their lives. In Dun Tiansuo, he watched the 6-side golden net slowly close up, and the space of the 6-side net cage became smaller and smaller. Behind the golden net, which was burned out of the hole by the original spirit fire, a layer of golden net was laid out by Jingu Mingxiu. It seems that even if the 7 or 8 layers of gold net are all penetrated, the other side will also arrange 7 or 8 more gold nets. So the idea flashed. Tian no longer let the original spirit fire continue to burn the golden net, but the fire flashed toward those golden skeletons who held the golden net. Boom! When the fire was about to be attacked by the golden skeletons, a layer of golden shield suddenly appeared on the golden skeletons. The original spirit fire didn't melt the golden shield in a moment, but it took 3 or 4 breaths to melt it. The fire ignited the golden skeletons, but they were brave and fearless, and rushed forward with the golden net. Seeing this scene, Tian's mind moves and sends a message to the 6 invisible dead men around him. The next moment, he has put the 6 dead men into the ring of spirit beast, and then he comes to a golden net with Dun Tiansuo's fierce sword in his hand and cuts it off. Boom! The terrible sword cut on the golden net. No accident, the golden net was cut by the invincible fierce sword. But at the next moment, Jingu Mingxiu, who is holding the golden net, moves horizontally. It can be seen that the gap of the golden net is more than 20 feet away from Tian. In front of him, the net is still intact, and the net is quickly covering him. Interesting, Tian whispered, and a dark golden magic seal appeared in his hand. Then he quickly enlarged it and smashed it down like a hill. With the enlargement of the magic seal, the gold net suddenly retreated to a distance, but it was still not broken, while the burning gold skeleton was replaced by some other gold skeleton. When the extremely heavy magic weapon Tian fell down quickly, it hit the golden net below with a bang. However, it only pressed the golden net to fall slowly, and did not show the trend of destroying the withered and decaying. In other words, his magic weapon seal was caught by the golden net of the ghost world. It's just that the weight of the magic seal is too heavy for the golden net to bear. But it is obvious that the existence of golden net consumes too much lethality of magic print. It seems that this golden net is also a means prepared by the ghost world to deal with his big seal magic weapon. Moreover, it should be for their own means. The other side made a variety of preventive measures. If that's all, you'll die. After a general understanding of the role of these golden nets, Tian no longer hides his power. With a loud shout, he releases his 200 puppets. Then he released 6 dead men from the ring of spirit beast. After counting the breath, the puppets of martial spirit they controlled were also released. Originally did not know what power golden net had, before Tian did not want to let his 6 dead men follow the adventure. No matter how powerful the golden net is, if you use the 5 element beads, you can pass through the golden net. Of course, you can't trap yourself. But you have to take some risks. Since you don't want to take risks, you don't need to use the 5 element beads. 323 puppets of martial spirits suddenly appeared, and Mingxiu didn't think much about it. However, when these puppets, armed with the flying swords of the half-immortal soldiers,
went up to kill those puppets who held the golden net, the countless ghosts around them caused a stir.
Boom!
A martial spirit puppet cuts a sword at a Jin Gu Ming Xiu holding a golden net. A bone knife appears in Jin Gu Ming Xiu's hand.
Suddenly, it goes up and makes a loud noise.
The Banxian soldier's flying sword cuts the bone knife directly and kills Jin Gu Ming Xiu.
A piece of golden light is everywhere.
Jin Gu Ming Xiu is directly cut into several pieces by the martial spirit puppet. Such a scene is staged around Yi Tian almost at the same time. Many of the golden bone and dark cultivation who hold the golden net are almost killed in a few breaths. The innermost golden net becomes a ownerless thing. The empty door opens, and the martial spirit puppet continues to kill the second golden net. Yi Tian's mind moved, locked those golden nets, and soon got into Shumi commandment. No matter whether these golden nets were useful or not, they could never fall into the hands of Baigu Mingxiu again.
The second floor.
Third floor. Another 2 layers of the golden net were broken by the ghost puppets, and those Jingu Mingxiu who controlled the golden net were quickly killed by the terrible ghost puppets. The outer golden net disappeared in a flash, and Jin Gu Ming Xiu removed the golden net and quickly retreated. Then an endless stream of skeletons came up.
Welcome! Yi Tian gave a loud drink and made a gesture.
He had already received the magic weapon seal on his palm.
The huge shadow flashed and fell not far away.
Boom! With a sound, the seal of magic weapon burst on many skeletons and bones, which had been smashed into the numerous bones underground. In this noise, the countless white bones meditation that had been gathered together scattered around, flying away in the distance in the more and more dense Ming Qi. All of a sudden, the direction was where the Terran and barbarian armies were stationed.
Is this the battle plan of the Ghost Kingdom? If you fail to encircle yourself, you will attack the allied forces of the Terran and the barbarian?
Yi Tian frowns, but his hand is never stopped. The magic weapon seal is smashed one after another, and it's not easy to gather these ghost regions together.
When will it be better not to kill them when they are concentrated?
Here, Yi Tian drives Dun Tianxua and constantly changes his position to offer a big seal magic weapon to bombard the ghost world.
The 323 puppets in the late Yuan dynasty were also killed.
This kind of martial spirit puppet is a magic weapon in essence. The whole body is made of extremely strong materials, and the most vulnerable parts are all protected. The soul puppets have no life and are very strong, so they are not afraid of attack.
Just like the killing machine, the soul puppets don't have to defend themselves. All moves are used to attack.
In the late Yuan dynasty, the puppets of martial spirits have already used killers. In their hands are extremely advanced flying swords of immortal soldiers. When the cold light flickers, the ghost areas fall one by one. One martial spirit puppet is like this, 2 martial spirit puppets are like this, 323 martial spirit puppets all have such lethality.
In these underworld-level ghost cultivation, the martial spirit puppets transformed by Yi Tian are invincible. If you want to control the ghost puppet, you have to kill the owner of the ghost puppet. This method was also adopted by Ming Xiu, but unfortunately, they failed. It's also a feast of harvest and repair. The skeleton of martial spirit is harvesting. Yi Tian's original spirit fire is harvesting. Just like the god of heaven, Yi Tian smashes the seal again and again, and the magic weapon is also reaping. In particular, the puppets of martial spirits, inspired by Yi Tian, rushed all the way to the front of a large area of Ghost World, and then turned to kill them. In front of them are the puppets of the martial spirits who are killing so much that they can't get through the Ghost World. In the back, they are Yi Tian and Benyuan Linghua. This is the place with the most intensive cultivation and the most serious casualties. While driving the seal magic weapon, Yi Tian swallows the elixir to restore his magic power. Where Dun Tianxua passed, 6 invisible dead men were also reaping the life of Ming Xiu. Innumerable meditations are in a mess on this battlefield. Outside the boundary of Tsangming, there was silence. There was no one talking about the position of the barbarians and the great friars of Yupu in the 27 Zongmen. The place where the great friars of Yupu and the 8 great schools are located is also quiet. There was also no one to speak to the ghost cultivation camp hundreds of miles away from the 2 forces.
The Empress of the Underworld and more than 40 Mingzuns stood in the same place, motionless, sensing the war situation in the Tsangming world. They had no expression on their faces and didn't say a word for a long time. It turns out that we were all cheated by Yi Tian. His martial spirit puppet didn't use up the best fairy jade at all. Instead, he made an appearance for the ghost world's secret cultivation. For a long time, the ancestor of Duan family said something leisurely. It's really terrible for him. So many of us didn't see through it. What's funny is that we are still talking about how to find a way to send the best fairy jade to Yi Tian in Tsangming Kingdom. One of the 27 patriarchal monks shook his head and sighed. Good, good. Yi Tian is so good at this time, Manwan laughed. Next, Yi Tian will rush to rescue the allied forces of his clan and the Terran. At this time of Tsangming world, Yi Tian and a lot of means join hands to encircle and kill only one of the camp of the ghost world. They didn't drive all of them to one place to kill. More than 500,000 of them seemed overwhelming. As early as the golden net was broken, many of them killed in the direction of the barbarian and Terran allied forces. Now, they are only 200 miles away from where the coalition is. Sure enough, as soon as Man Wang had finished talking, Yi Tian and the Tsangming world suddenly gave up chasing the ghost world, which had been scattered and fleeing. He controlled Dun Tiansuo and cooperated with more than 300 ghost puppets to rush back to support quickly. At this time, Yi Tian has put away the magic weapon seal, no longer bombard, but used the fierce sword to kill all the way. No matter Dun Tiansuo or Wu Hun puppets, their speed is far from that of the ghost world. They swept through the ghost world all the way, but they didn't reduce their speed at all. In front of the countless ghost world, when Mingxiu and the allied forces of the two nationalities were engaged in close combat, Yi Tian and 320 puppets of martial spirits finally arrived. The leader is mighty. The leader is mighty. Then when the crowd cheered, Yi Tian, who was escaping from Tiansuo, pointed to the front and yelled, "Retreat!" Smell speech, everyone alang, just Leaf Day also killed Red Eye, but in the twinkling of an eye but want to retreat. This is the place where many people died at the hands of the underworld and many other people buried their bones. Before that, Yi Tian gave a death order to let everyone stay in the cemetery. But now that the battle is going well, why give up this position at the first order?